Okay. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Oh. How are we all doing? I'm just transition back. Boom. Oh no. Something I forgot to do. How are we doing, guys? Hope we're doing well, if anybody's here. Hope we're all doing good. Hope we all had a good Christmas. Hope we all had a fantastic Christmas. There we go. Okay. should be a little bit more in focus now. Oh, right, let me just quickly pop and check something. If I'm not mistaken, I think there's probably like at least a 5 or 6 second delay, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just know if you can hear me, guys, if I'm coming through okay. Hope we're all had a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever we are in this lovely world. Well, lovely sometimes. Just so we come on for a little bit of a chill. Just had Christmas, so hope you guys had everything you wanted, or hope you guys spent time with your loved ones and enjoyed the festive season. I hope you were jolly. I hope you were jolly. Be jolly. Be jolly. Not a lot of Christmas spirit about in many places, so make sure you are jolly. Oh. Yeah, right. One thing which we can go over a bit quick, actually. I shared this on my page earlier, that someone created a poll. James Goddard created a poll. If you have not seen, just see about in the chat. Hey Ian, how you doing, man? Hope we're doing good. Wanted to showcase this a bit quick. Will it be better like this? Yeah, we'll do it like this, actually. This one works a bit better. In fact, I'll zoom in just a little bit. I think that might be a bit too far. Be tipping my hand and revealing who I voted for in it, but oh well. If you go over to the YouTube page, ladies and gentlemen, if you go on over to the YouTube page, you will see that there is a link on there to an X page with a poll on there. And James Goddard ran a poll on X, or is running a poll, and it's live for the next 16 hours, so I'm not sure when it will exactly expire. But it is asking, I know somebody's commented on it saying that a lot of the news sources and whatever come from English sources, which, yeah, obviously the main media sources that talk about any kind of national problem or whatever are going to be coming from England. The Doge Wales guys, in fairness, pardon me, have been pretty good, in my opinion, of going through a lot of the clips, getting a lot of the clips. But there's a way to vote for the best Welsh activist of 2025, and I was actually shocked and surprised to find that not only was my name on there, but some other people had actually voted. A little fledgling channel, a little fledgling podcast like me. Hey Rachel, how you doing? You didn't miss anything. We literally just got started. I'm late, if anything. We're just going to have a chill. Really, we're just going to have a chill and be jolly and enjoy the post-Christmas season. So, yeah, on X, guys, in that post, which you can find on my YouTube page, we'll take you to this, and you can see how I voted this. Maybe I'll tip my hand a little bit. Obviously, you can see how the poll would go when you go and vote on it. Anyway, for me, it was personally a toss-up between Doge Wales and Joe Marsh. Maybe I'm a little bit biased towards Joe if he's watching, because he's actually obviously sat down with me for the podcast, and we've actually been on a couple of activism ventures together. I've been on 1 or 2 bridge drops with him and a couple of the other activists as well. Really great group of people. And he's been instrumental in particular Welsh nationalism, but also British nationalism for decades, even 2 decades or whatever. He's been instrumental in it all, and Doge Wales and people like myself, coming up more so very, very small, much smaller. Doge Wales seem to have a much greater idea of how to dissect things and research and do that kind of stuff. I don't know whether the guy who runs Doge Wales has a background in journalism or whatever it may be, or research, whatever it might be. But a lot of the clips which I review and stuff like that are often pulled from their X page. So they're absolutely tremendous. For me, it would have been a toss-up between them two. You can see the way the poll is going at the moment. But what really shocked me is that people actually looked at this channel. People looked at the four heavyweights, 3 heavyweights and 1 fledgling cruiserweight on there. And at best, and that's being generous. You know, you could make the argument to go less than that. I just thought, nah, he's the best. So thank you to everybody who done that. Thank you to everybody who done that. But you should go and cast your vote in that. Make sure you go and cast your vote in that. Maybe I shouldn't reveal how I voted or whatever. But yeah, Joe, so I voted for you because I obviously follow your channel. You've given me the time of day to come on my channel, my podcast. Thank you ever so much if you do happen to be watching this. And I could not think of, well, so far obviously there's 16 hours left, but really there's not really anybody more deserving than that, I could think. But thank you to everyone that voted for me. Thank you to everyone that voted for me. I really appreciate it. Really, really appreciate it. So hopefully we will be carrying this on for the foreseeable. Hopefully we'll be carrying this on for the foreseeable. Merry Christmas to you too. Merry Christmas to you too. Hope we are all jolly. This one thing I will say, this hat is way too tight. This hat is way too tight on my head. It will restrict the blood flow to my head. So if my already unintelligibleness becomes even more unintelligible, it is doing a lot to negate a lot of the big headache that I have at the moment. A very front-based headache here, which I've had for most of the day. So it is actually quite relieving. This is also doing a pretty good job. But we won't talk about that. But yeah, so it's way too tight. But hey, we are jolly. We are jolly. So yeah, wherever we are, guys, hope we're having fantastic day. Hope we had a fantastic Christmas, obviously, as well. But yeah, go and cast your vote in that poll. You can find the post. Let me grab this, grab the link, boom, and then I should be able to put it in the chat as well. So where's my chat? Let me get rid of that. Awesome. If I just do that, this is the post. There we go. I'm not going to take it off. I'm not going to take it off because we're jolly. We are being jolly today. We are being jolly today. I'm not going to take it off. We shall see. We are being jolly today. But yeah, the only thing I was thinking, guys, unless there's anything anybody wanted to suggest or anything like that, is the only video that I wanted to go over. I know a lot of the content or whatever can sometimes be like, you know, constantly playing the same record or whatever, but it's because obviously the problems are not getting solved, and you know, a lot of the things with the British government in particular is, you know, built on perpetuating these problems, right? That's why people keep talking about them, obviously. Is the one of the videos which I sourced in the it was an episode a good couple of weeks ago at least, talking about Islam and views on women and stuff like that, by a guy called Raymond Ibrahim. And I remember it was in my watch later because I've been going back to it and watching it bit by bit. Every time I've gone back to watch it, something has always come up. It's only a 9-minute video, right? It's only a 9-minute video, which I thought would be good to go over in a moment. But every time I go back to watch it, it's always, you know, something comes up or whatever. Because there's been this whole thing in the conservative nationalist space at the moment. You know, the debate over can I have Boris Castle if it goes civil war? I mean, yeah, why not? I don't think it's up to me to say that. I don't think it's up to me to say that. But yeah, why not? Why not? Where was I? See, this is what I mean. Have not been with it today. Have not been with it today. Even in the gym, nothing was going right. Nothing was going right. Oh yeah, I know where I was. I know where I was. Talking about the space at the moment. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, a lot of conflict in the conservative right-wing space over, Israel, Palestine, that conflict. But one of the things that came up recently, I don't know if Tucker Carlson was in like a radio interview or something like that, is when he said about radical Islam, and radical Islam hasn't killed anybody for like 24 years or whatever it is. And again, a lot of people, I see this in this space, particularly when we're talking about ideologies. You can talk about it with Judaism. Okay, well, I say you should be able to, right? Should be able to, the same way you talk about Islam, should be able to talk about Judaism and any kind of ideology, right? Every ideology should be critiqued and scrutinized, absolutely. And he kind of saying about that, again, radical Islam hasn't killed anybody in America for 24 years. There have been multiple, attacks that you could potentially contribute to Islamic motivations, depending on where people are coming from. I'd be shocked if the recent attacks that were on those, not Capitol Police, National Guard in DC recently, where I think it was 2 of them lost their lives and one of them luckily survived by what appeared to be, or at least was later confirmed to be, an Afghan national. So again, I'd be surprised if there wasn't at least some Islamic motivations there that cost 2 people their lives. But there have been multiple other examples, but people then want to take the conversation again towards Israel or towards Judaism, towards Zionist influence. And I think what people can do is, because they're so set against one, they can forget that also the other is not their friend. Is not their friend. So, radical Shizlam as their eye on Bo Morris. You've wanted it since I was about 10. Well, hey, you have to fight them. You have to fight. We'll fight them. We'll fight them. But yeah, as I was saying, sorry, I'm trying to keep watch on the chat and get back to what I was saying, that a lot of people then, you see them on the very, very right wing. Jake Shields said something about it a good while ago as well. Because he'd been so set against Jews and Israel and stuff like that, that then they forget that, many, you could say radical Islam, or you could say Islam. I don't really differentiate between them, because, you have the ones that will go and commit the terror attacks, but then you have the ones that will say that wasn't real Islam and it's not part of the culture and stuff like that. It's weird then when you get into the fact that they prescribe terrorist groups that we don't. It's a whole conflated, it's a mess. This whole thing is a mess, but it all has the same root ideology, it would seem. But then because they're so set against Jews, or they're so set against Israel, they're so set against, all of that stuff, that they then think that the others, just because they have the same interest against that, so many right-wingers and the Muslims will have some, or seemingly less principled right-wingers, and then the Muslims, radical Muslims in particular, will have like some kind of agreement, if you will, because it seems that they have a common enemy, but then they'll forget that it's only that binds them together. Otherwise, they'd be the same enemies anyway. I know I'm beating around the bush here a lot. But, yeah, Islam is radical by default. Yes, that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Absolutely. Because it seeks to spread by the sword, right? Ultimately, the very thing that a lot of the lefties will, accuse like Christians of doing, often referencing the Crusades and stuff like that, and all of this kind of stuff, spreading by the sword. It's literally what they do, So yeah, it is absolutely radical by default, and that's why I wanted to go over this video as well, because I thought it was a really, really good video. It's titled "White Women Are Just for Sex: Islam's Eternal Fantasy" by Raymond Ibrahim, and it's very interesting to note the perspectives that this religion has on white women, European women, and he actually goes back to early Islamic texts and scholars, apparently including references dating back to Muhammad regarding contemporary developments in Europe and all of this stuff, touching on how white women have historically been sexualized and stereotyped as inherently promiscuous or objects of conquest within Islamic discourse, which if you've seen a lot of the rape gang excerpts, for example, you'll understand and you'll already know that is 100% how a lot of these disgusting people saw these young, predominantly white British girls. There were other, little subset minorities of other victims as well, little Sikh girls and stuff like that. But vast majority, they preyed on white British girls because this is how they saw those white British girls. They were there for sex. They were there to please them. And that's all that they were there for. A lot of people, you say stuff like that and instantly they'll turn off. They'd be like, how can you say that? How can you say that? Well, it comes straight from the source. This is the thing. A lot of it coming straight from the source. So that's why, in fact, I will start playing this video in just a moment because it is a really, really good video, in my opinion. I have watched it. And Raymond is person, he's wrote many books about this stuff as well. I believe one of them... I can't remember the title. I'll see if I can quickly find some of the titles of his books now, just so I can bring some of the works he's done. I know there was one of them about Sword of Islam, I think it was called. Raymond Ibrahim books. Sword and Scimitar, that's what it was called. Sword and Scimitar, 14 Centuries of War Between Islam and the West. He's also the Two Swords of Christ. So he's an Orthodox Christian, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he's an Orthodox Christian. And so he's written these. He's based in America. I think he's a great source to really highlight, again, in a way that people will find very hard to argue, I think, about how many of these people that have come to our countries in particular, right? Many of these people that have come from outside and come to our countries, how different they act in their home, how different they act in other countries as well, their own home countries, right? Versus how they act in the UK, in Australia, in Western countries and stuff like that. Muslims in Preston told me what they were doing and foresaw that if I talked about it, normal people call me racist. Yeah, absolutely. It's they played on that political correctness and people's it's really damaging, as we've seen now, the mix of pride and ignorance that we thought. I say we as a overall society, just most people thinking that there's either no problem or thinking that they know better. The kind of things where Western liberals will hear chants of like death to the West, death to the USA, death to all these other things, right? I think, hey, you probably don't mean that. You probably don't mean that. You know what I mean? Or again, notions that they would see, white European, white British women, for example, as nothing more than sex slaves, inherently promiscuous, that this is what they for, they're just to please them, right? And, thinking that we know better. And that they played off that. They absolutely played off that. And obviously the state persecuting just native people that wanted to talk about it using all different terms, racist, Islamophobe, all of these things, right? All of these things. And you have that over the course now of nearly 80 years. And you wonder why people, not you guys in particular, but people wonder why people are so angry. People who are only now just getting into this conversation and discourse for the first time, wondering why people are so angry. Like, this has been going on for nearly 100 years. 100 years. We have been, pillaged. Young girls have been pillaged in the name of this religion with tied in racial motivations as well. And all we've done for 80 years is deny it, or the state has forced us to deny it, forced us to ignore it under threat of imprisonment, character assassination. And once your character is assassinated, there's no telling that anybody's going to come and actually try and assassinate you, as you see with Charlie Kirk, for example, and you see with all other attempts on people's lives and whatever, whether they're successful or not. It's you look to all the other examples as well, the people that have mocked Islam or whatever. You've got Charlie Hebdo, and you've got what's his name, Salman Rushdie, who then come out and said that he was, wasn't he basically nigh on spewing the multiculturalist line and thinking that the most pressing thing in society at the moment was racism, supposed racism, and saying that he would still vote Labour. This is how deeply ingrained it can be. The guy's had a fatwa called on his head. He lost his eye in an attack. And you would still say that the biggest problem is the quote-unquote far right or the racists or whatever. But yeah, Islam is absolutely radical by default. I think more people need to understand exactly how they would be seen. For example, you see it, the complete lack of understanding and the prideful ignorance again, with the Queers for Palestine mob, right? You know, the fact that you go to these areas of the world where they're not accepting of these ideologies and these habits, should we say, and these proclivities, you know, like homosexuality and all of this stuff, and they could very well literally throw you from buildings or hang you from a crane or something like that. People forget this. But it's how deep. That's why these things need to be had, and more attention needs to be pushed on these things. A lot of the times, it's almost like just trying to beat down. You got to keep running your head into this wall. You got to keep running your head into this wall until you eventually like just break down people's defenses. Just keep. I don't want to say like pummeling them, but just keep presenting them with the truth over and over. That's just somehow you got to do it sometimes. Turkeys for KFC, yeah, exactly. Didn't realize I was racist till I started spouting facts. Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing. You look at my X feed, for example. A lot of it, you know, people get very emotional on X, and you don't get the true reflection of the person just from their social media and stuff like that. People see things that I simply repost, not even things that I have actually posted myself, but things that I've reposted, right? And I get called all of these names because of them. I have done in the past anyway. You know, but yeah, exactly. It's these terms have been used to stifle people just saying the truth and try and silence people that were saying the truth. It's quite clear now that the racism label in particular, for example, was used to stop discourse around real problems that were going on in British society for generations and that are still going on today. Tells you a lot, especially when, I don't know when you guys might have been in school, for example. I think it's gotten worse since I was in school, right? Especially with the whole trans stuff and stuff like that. Some of the stuff I was hearing is truly, truly horrendous. You know, the sexualization of children in the public school system is a massive problem as well. But you've got all throughout school, down with the truth. Yeah, down with Big Brother. Down with the truth is what they are like. Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there. You had multiculturalism and give racism the red card and all of this stuff. All the way from when you were, you know, probably like, I'm thinking back to it, definitely in primary school. So primary school, I can definitely remember displays about diversity and multiculturalism and all of this stuff back when I was in year 4. I can still remember that. So that would have been, what, about 8 years old? So at 8 years old, you're already having this stuff pummeled into your head. And you're with these people, you're with these teachers that are just towing the line and whatever, whether because they're scared, whether they don't want to, whether they do, whether they're ardent zealots, it really doesn't matter. The result is the same. You're spending 7 hours a day, 5 days a week with these people, potentially even more, right? If you go into extracurricular activities, all of this stuff, right? All of this stuff. And, you know, parents that are none the wiser, parents that had the exact same treatment with them as well. And then all the way through school, right? And a lot of people of my generation, the generation coming up now, they're not, it would have been the worst thing ever to be called a racist, to be called all of this stuff. It would have been, just to simply be called it, it would have been the worst thing ever, right? Probably, as we said, you got people that are being killed and beaten up for these labels and stuff like that, right? Young or old, doesn't really matter. You got people that the minute they get even labeled as it, like Antifa, they call you a Nazi to justify killing you. People call you racist or whatever to justify often silencing you or hurting you. That's what they do. And there we go. Never saw any of that at primary or high school. Merry Christmas, Toffee. Hope you had a good one too. All good on this end. All good on this end. We're very jolly. We're very, very jolly. But yeah, appreciate that insight, because it shows how it has progressed, especially in the modern day. It seems that though probably would have been around when, you know, New Labour got in 1997, would have been when this was being pushed on the state level at a massive level. Tony Blair saying you had to rub the right's nose in diversity, all of this stuff, wage war on the forces of conservatism. Yeah, I can imagine that. I can only imagine what that experience would have been like. It's, kids can I don't know what the experience actually was, but I know kids can be ruthless. Kids can be ruthless, not understanding what's going on at that age and stuff like that. And yeah, so you had all of this coming in. That's what I was getting on to again. You had all of this coming in from a very, very young age. And obviously kids having no defense against that, thinking that it's normal. But now you have people coming through. It tells you a lot about the state of things, that people are not scared about being called these things anymore. They're realizing the target is going to be on their head, whether they realize it or not, whether they agree with it or not, and whether they... Unless they go with the left's version, which again, very similar to Islam. The left is basically playing this game of convert or die, right? So they have their worldview. They have, their way of how things should be, especially the radical sectors like your Antifa communists and stuff like that. They have that way, and they're playing game like they do, and it's why you can see some elements of where they align with the Muslims and stuff like that, especially the quote unquote radical ones. Is that they play this game of convert or die. If you don't want to be called a Nazi, don't be a Nazi. But all that is a cover for is, you need to adopt every single one of our beliefs and be a devout follower of what we follow, or we're going to kill you. And we're just going to call you a Nazi to justify it. So yeah, that's like why we're playing this really, really awful game, if you will. And it's like a tightrope to walk, in many ways, because you haven't got a nose around the corner, right? Merry Christmas, guys. Merry Christmas, John. Eve, how you doing? Do you have zero hermaphrodites in their ranks? Full of Transformers, are they not? Are you full of Transformers? Spent Christmas Day and Boxing Day on a mountain in Brecon when my dogs had to... Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I can imagine. Try to not talk about it so much with people nowadays. I try to not talk about it so much with people nowadays. But yeah, conversations and discussions can frequently go on for very, very, very long periods of time and end up going in multiple circles as well. So yeah, I wouldn't mind spending, Christmas Day and Boxing Day on a mountain either. That's a great choice. I might keep that in mind for future years. Maybe for some time, maybe on New Year's. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, pleasure to have you here, everybody. Pleasure to have you here. Right. So yeah, one thing I do. Pleasure to see you guys that have joined recently. Just quickly jump in to see how we're doing. Oh, good. Awesome. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. I say, I hope we had a really, really great Christmas, obviously. Well, some time to, maybe lefties aside. It's a little bit of a joke. We all have our loved ones and stuff like that. Even if we don't get along with them, and hope that we can enjoy the festive season and be jolly. That would be the ideal outcome. It's being jolly. Are we all jolly? In fact, one thing I will do. Bear with. There we go. What's that? Is that perfect? Yep. Dog is in the great outdoors. We were actually out today. Me and my... Joe, how you doing, my man? We were actually out today. Only went out for a quick walk and to throw the ball and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know if you saw Maui. Like, this is why I'll always have like that little thing in my heart, especially like very much so... Very much so, nearly at this moment, trusting dogs more than humans, or most humans anyway. I don't know if you saw that terror attack, obviously tragic terror attack that happened in Bondi, completely preventable, and obviously it was the fault of the people talking about it, and obviously the solution is gun laws and hate and stronger speech laws, right? That's always the solution, despite the fact it never friggin' works. That Maui, there was a Bernese mountain dog, Maui, that was standing over her owner's body, deceased owner's body, and refused to leave it despite being terrified. Some our dogs, for example, they have more loyalty than our politicians do. Obviously our politicians have none. They're loyal to a very specific voter base, which is massively, massively changing to literally not be the British people. It isn't the British people in many areas of Britain, as we know. In many areas of Britain, the voter base which they actively pander to, because they are the ones that are now in the majority, or getting close to being in the majority anyway, are distinctly not British. And that's treason. That's treason. But yeah, one thing I wanted to do, quickly open the chat on YouTube a moment. Just do this. It's difficult to type when I got the microphone right in front of me. There we go. Are we being jolly? Are we being jolly? We best be being jolly. Yeah. Oh. That's lovely. One of the things the great people that I know did give me was a nice smoker. A nice smoker for my for me devil's water. For me devil's water. So that was very, very nice. So awesome. We're being jolly. Good. Glad to hear we're being jolly. So whilst that poll runs, ladies and gentlemen, I'll just keep it up on there for a moment. So yeah, I realize I've been going on there, like just talking for a little bit. Because I like just talking with you guys. You guys are great. You guys are amazing. Yeah, sometimes the cold outdoors is better than a heated argument. I'll take that. That's like a quote to go on the wall. That's like a quote to go on the wall. You know, like the inspirational quotes, which sometimes you write down in your phone, right? That's like one of the ones to put on your wall or put in the notes app of your phone. And when you're in those situations and you don't know what to do or whatever, you you think, hang on, I'm in a heated argument, but, you know, a cold walk up the mountain with the dog is sometimes better than a heated argument. It's like, ooh, and there we go. Gets you away from that situation as well. Gets you away from that situation. You get a freezing cold snowball from the car and boot a light one and light a big one in about 5 minutes. God bless. That is one that I got bought for Christmas. So I don't exactly know how expensive it was. It's Irish though. It's Paddy's, if you know what Paddy's is, this one. So this would be something to show as well. I am here, guys. I just need to pop behind a moment. Because for the festive holidays, I was actually gifted with a very nice way of storing it as well. So I don't know what you guys would make of this. My chat box is in the way a moment of my screen, so I just need to minimize that. But I'm actually keeping it right now in one of these little decanters. So it's a globe, and it has a ship in the middle of it. So I don't know if you can see. There you go. You can just about see the ship in the inside, or you should just be able to see the ship in the inside. It's actually upside down at the moment, so if I just turn it around. There we are. So yeah. That was another lovely little gift that I had. Funny story with that, actually. We were doing a bit of Christmas shopping, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we were in the shop. It's only Mankind that these things were in, and I was going, I might buy one of these decanters for myself. No, I drink whiskey now. I might buy one of these decanters for myself, and she's like, put it back, and I was like, oh, have you got me one of these for Christmas? And then I just saw it. She kind of like smiled, but her face sank at the same time. I was like, oh no. Because I guessed quite a lot this year. Not intentionally. I just put in these situations where it just happened to be the thing that I would just happen to guess what it would be. But hey, we still enjoyed it. And we had a great Christmas this year. At least I think we did anyway. But yeah, so it's Paddy's. It's just Paddy's, this one is. So it's Irish triple distilled. I'm not sure how much it is. I got it gifted to me as a Christmas present. That's what we're drinking at the moment. And it's been smoked with some applewood chips, I believe. Some little applewood carvings. Should feed our politicians, chum. Get better politicians. Pedigree, chum. But yeah, I think so. You know that, what was that place? Was it in America? Let me know if my mic is clipping over the limit a little bit, by the way, guys. I'll bring the level down a little bit if it's a little bit, uncomfortable for your ears and whatever. Easy pour. What was that place where they had like a cat or a dog that was elected as its mayor? Dog, mayor, America. There we are. Maybe we should take a... Maybe we should take a page out of some of these small American towns. So there's a town called Idlewind in California, and it has the Mayor Max lineage. So there's a series of golden retrievers, Max the first, the second, and the third, that have held the honorary position of mayor since 2012. Apparently Rabbit Hash in Kentucky, I believe. Yeah, Rabbit Hash in Kentucky. Known for electing animal mayors for years, with Goofy, the dog, among them. In fact, I'll bring this up on screen now, so I'm not chatting shit. Where is it? Where's my... here we are. So here we go. Maybe we can take some inspiration from some of these examples. I don't know. So there's an NYC dog, Simon, a Basset cattle dog mix, win a mayoral race in early 2025. Does that mean he beat out Mom Danny for that? Did he beat out Mom Danny for that? No, I tell you what. Let's have a look here. I know. Oh, here we go. Mayor Max. Oh, it's not a very good website. No, look. Is that coming up? Okay. Okay. I'll quickly recrop this a minute. In fact, it'd just be easier to do it this way. So yeah, Mayor Max. You can get a 2026 calendar. A lot. So he's Mayor Max. Maximus Mighty Dog Mueller was voted into office during an election held on June 11th, 12th, and 13th in 2012 in Idlewind, and was inaugurated to a one-year term on 1st of July. And he won 2/3 of the votes. Now, it is California. So I don't exactly know if they're doing the best, but I think that's more Newsom's fault, if I'm not mistaken. Things that are going wrong in California, like sending their water to the sea, which they could have used to fight fires. I think that's more Newsom's fault. I will not blame Max for that. Don't normally drink, but I treated myself to four snowball bottles. I'm sure they are smaller than I remember. What is snowball, if you don't mind me asking? I'm not familiar with this. I would love to know what it is. I know you got Fireball whiskey. but I don't know about this snowball. Sounds interesting. Right. So let's figure that out. Close that off. Okay. And hope that war isn't declared during the course of this stream. We can only hope. By the way, strongly recommend that the new short that I put out on YouTube, if you haven't already checked it out, you go and check it out. It's actually really insane. So there was a case in Minnesota, 2 Somalis involved in about $7 million of Medicaid fraud. And in a case that's basically as much of an open and shut case as you can get, the jury was completely unanimous in the guilty verdict, and then a judge overturned it, citing that it wasn't actually possible for the state to prove that this fraud was committed by these people. And they don't deny the fraud was committed, right? But another biggest thing to have a look at as well is that Minnesota in particular, Minnesota taxpayers, right, and Minnesota's been one of these areas that have been heavily hit by migration, particularly from this area of the world. There's many sources, or at least one source, saying now that one of the premier sources of income and funding for the Al-Shabaab terror group is the Minnesota taxpayer. So they are having serious problems out there with these people at the moment. But yeah, judge just went, fuck you to the jury, basically acquitted them on a unanimous guilty verdict. And then fraud like this, playing into the wider conversation about fraud and stuff like that, you know, is then being used seemingly to outright fund these terror groups in areas like Somalia and stuff like that. This is the short. If you haven't seen it, I'll chuck the link in the chat. So there we go. Chuck the link in the chat. Awesome. Thank you. Good to hear we're being jolly, guys. Good to hear we're being jolly. RAF Scrampton's dog was the best dog name. That's a good one. That's a good one. Get my coat. Nah, no need to go. Town in northern India called Digboy, named after we found oil. Awesome. Awesome stuff. But yeah, one video which I thought would be good to go over, guys. I'll just check to make sure it's working. A moment. As I said, this video by Raymond Ibrahim. So what I'll do is I'll bring it up on screen and just see if levels come through. I'll just make sure it's working. Here we go. So let me just see if this is working.
On June 25th, a court in the United
appears to be. If that came through, just let me know. And then I thought we can go over this as well. For those of you who joined a little bit later, after we were doing the little bit of intro to this discussion, the discussion was around sort of like Islam's perceptions of European women in particular, how they're seen in the religion by the adherents of the religion and stuff like that, and how it's not just the quote-unquote radical people, the radical sects, it's something that's massively more you know, ingrained in the religion, going back to the early texts and stuff like that. Examples of how I believe we got some examples of some of the stuff that happened in Europe and stuff like that during those very dark ages and stuff like that as well. But yeah, Raymond Ibrahim, this guy on the video here we'll go through now, has written quite a few books on the topic. He's an Orthodox Christian, so I think he's written a book called Two Swords of Christ, but he's also wrote a book called Sword and Scimitar about the 1400 years of conflict between Islam and the West. So a lot of people, they have these conceptions that it's just radical people that are the problem, particularly within this religion, right? And in the context of others like Tucker Carlson and Candace at the moment, showing, you know, they're going to be focused so much on Israel and Judaism, Zionism, all of this stuff, that they will then downplay the Muslim element, the Islamic element, right? Tucker seemingly, again, I don't like calling people like simping and saying people are funded necessarily and stuff like that. As many people do throw that around, it could be true. I obviously just have no way to prove it, but then when Tucker now is downplaying what he calls radical Islam and stuff like that, just because of you know, wanting to put so much focus on Israel and Zionist influence, which is absolutely something which needs to be scrutinized. Obviously, groups like AIPAC and all of these things, right? How they buy politicians, right? People coming out and saying that if the US was to turn on Israel, that the Israel would dump them and that would be the end of the US and they just move on to someone else. It's like, what an odd thing to say. But then you don't say that and then say, oh, well, that doesn't mean that the other 53 Muslim countries or whatever are instantly the friends of America and instantly the friends of Britain and all the European countries. They're absolutely not. And it's not just the radicals that we need to be worried about. The perceptions of how, for example, they look at women, right? The examples of how they look at women, particularly European, right? Particularly white European women, is deeply ingrained within the religion, explains things like the rape of Britain very well. So I'll play a little bit of the video and yeah, hope you guys enjoy it also. And yeah, I think this will be really, really useful. It's only a short video, it's only about 10 minutes, and I think it'd be a good thing for us to talk about as well. Oh, here we are.
On June 25th, a court in the United Kingdom heard about how a 14-year-old British girl was once told, quote, "This is what white girls are for," before being sexually assaulted by a Muslim teen around her age. In the victim's own words, quote, "He said it was my own fault. I'd led him on. I shouldn't have walked around in what I was dressed in. I deserved it, and that is what white girls were for." He would also refer to her as his white slut. The same court heard about how another Muslim man, after having his way with another British girl, also called her the same word, as well as a dirty bitch, before spitting at her and laughing. Now, what's striking about these revelations is that the very same
Important to note, especially with the rape gangs, obviously it's not just the rape and the gang rape and the grooming and stuff like that. Obviously, as you guys will well know, these girls were tortured. These girls were tortured. It wasn't just that. It was meant to be as degrading, humiliating, painful, as harmful as possible. And obviously racism is fine when they do it.
Logic and verbatim words have been used by legions of sexual assailants of a certain religion who tend to see the females of a certain race as nymphomaniacal masochists who want nothing else in life but to be degraded, used, and abused. Here are but a few more examples. In 2014, a Muslim man explained to another British woman why he was sexually assaulting her. "You white women are good at it," said he, between her crying and struggling. That, of course, is just another variant of "this is what white girls are for," as that other more recent UK courtroom heard on June 25th.
I'll pause that a minute. Bear with. I'll move my head slightly out of the way. Just so my head's going to be slightly off screen, but I want you guys to just be able to see the full of it. So it says, Rotherham teen... just make sure I'm coming through okay. I'm going to turn my headphones up a little bit. Rotherham teen told that it is what white girls are for when she was raped by 3 men. That is what we're talking about here. Hopefully this stream doesn't get... Hopefully the re-recording of this doesn't get demonetized or anything like that. I mean, the video's up on YouTube, so surely just us looking at the video is going to be, fine for YouTube and stuff like that. If the video's up and able to stay up, then surely it should be absolutely fine.
Fifth. In 2020, another British woman revealed that her Muslim molesters called her a white cunt and a white whore and a white bitch. In 2019, another court heard how a British girl was, quote, passed around like a piece of meat among her Muslim assailants. Speaking now as an adult, the court heard...
So I'm glad that he's done that, because it shows that people around the world are paying attention to what's going on in Britain, gives us reason to hope as well, knowing that we're not alone in this and that big voices, the podcast scene in the UK is very underdeveloped at this moment in time. So again, independent voices, the government is obviously doing everything they can to stifle any independent conversation voices, all of these things, right? So it's good that other people who have freedom of speech and stuff like that are able to speak on these things. And it's good as well that he's given shit tons of examples there, because a lot of times, I don't know if you guys found, like, if you see somebody put some asinine post on X or something like that, one of these lefty lunatics, and then you literally, that there's an example in your head, that there is an example which you could pull, and if you could then just project your mind into the phone, it would be right there. But you have to then go back through like reams of screenshots, or you have to then go try and find the actual example, and you have to bookmark it so you come back to it. It's good there because you just have shit tons of examples that you can point to. It's like, oh, perfect. This is, again, and not just one example, not just an isolated incident, as we know, none of these are isolated incidents. Example after example after example after example showing the same or similar things. So I think I appreciate Raymond in this instance for laying that groundwork for the viewer in this instance.
Heard how she was, quote, raped on a dirty mattress above a takeaway and forced to perform sex acts in a churchyard. And how one of her abusers, quote, urinated on her in an act of humiliation afterward. In 2018, another British woman was trafficked to Morocco, where she was sexually assaulted by dozens of men. They, quote, made me believe I was nothing more than a slut and a white whore, she recollects. They treated me like a leper, apart from when they wanted sex. I was less than human to them. I was rubbish. In 2015, another Muslim man called a 13-year-old girl a little white slag, British slang for promiscuous woman, before forcibly de-virginizing her. In 2013, not only did Dr. Taj Hargay, a British imam, confirm that the majority of the UK's imams promote grooming rings, in his words, he said Muslim men are taught that women are, quote, second-class citizens, little more than chattel or possessions over whom they have absolute authority.
How Islamophobic, Raymond? How Islamophobic of you to say that the imams would dare preach such things? Do you know we are the bastion of multiculturalism? We are the bastion of acceptance and tolerance? Yeah. YT censorship is wrong. Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. But, yeah, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Not really too much you can do. You just got to roll with the punches as best you can. And that's why, segue, pardon me, important segue actually. I'll just bring this off screen a moment because I need to go back onto something. That's why, if you haven't done so already, which I think pretty much most of you, if not all of you, would have, that if I quickly go onto this, I'm going to just get ready to put a link in the chat. The link is down in the description of this stream anyway. If you have not done so, you should go follow me on Rumble. You should go follow me on Rumble, which you can at this link. Because again, a lot more uncensored, a lot more uncut, especially with a lot to do with a lot of the more pertinent topics. There was an example of something which I recorded in the actual podcast, which you can go and listen to. I think it's in number 84. The clip is up on YouTube, and it has the actual censor in the thumbnail. So in fact, just to illustrate my point, I even made sure I done it in the thumbnail so that it wouldn't get like pulled or anything like that. If I bring this up on screen, so this was the thumbnail for the YouTube version. I'm just going to move me slightly over. So you have to just ignore the black bars around the side of around the tops and sides of the image. This is the thumbnail that I ended up going with, and you can see here I've censored out the part of this in question and put a big censor bar over it. It's to highlight again that there were parts of that in the actual recording, in the actual show, and in the clip, which obviously I took then from the podcast itself, that there was things that had to be cut out, quite important things. Particularly if you are a parent and you have kids in the school system. I think it would be very, very important to know. It's an American example. So again, from California. So again, maybe not exactly the same, obviously, but a lot of the concepts, a lot of the same stuff will be coming through in the quote-unquote education system. Owen No Starmer is as cloth-eared as the conservatives about the crisis. They accept the rape of white girls and women. The whole world knows about it too. Yep. Think about how many are championing it as well. Championing it because they think that we deserve it and stuff like that. Had a comment, thread with somebody on X the other day. They commented, really nice comment on one of the things that I'd shared. We have a little, conversation in the comments. And then I said something like, Labour are bad, but Plaid income in for Wales going to make it worse. And somebody, Pedro, the account's name was, right? Pedro, of all things, said that, Plaid will make it worse and you deserve it. I'm like, why? What did I do? What did my young female relatives do that would be the target for these people? What did I ever do? But yet I deserve it somehow. We're always told that we shouldn't view people as collectives, or we shouldn't advocate for anything based on collectives or whatever. But when other people do it to us, it's perfectly fine. When other people exercise their in-group preferences or look at us all in the same way as the same collective, that's perfectly fine. When we do that, all of a sudden it's evil, and all of a sudden it's evil and wrong. Either it's evil and wrong all the time or it isn't. Either it's evil and wrong all the time or it isn't evil and wrong. So yeah. Okay, sorry. There was no levels coming through my mic. I thought that my mic had cut out.
And that the imams preach a doctrine that, quote, denigrates all women, but treats whites with particular contempt. There's certainly no doubting that last point. While this phenomenon manifests itself with extreme regularity in that bastion of diversity, the UK, it's ultimately less about being British and more about being white. The proof is that the same thing is happening all across Europe. Thus, in Germany, in 2016, a group of Muslim migrants stalked a 25-year-old German woman and hurled, quote, filthy insults at her and taunted her for sex. Then they explained their logic. German girls are just there for sex, said they, before reaching into her blouse and groping her. In 2016, another Muslim man who almost killed his 25-year-old...
Very similar incident to what happened in Cardiff a few weeks ago. I believe it was. Luckily, the girl managed to get away after being groped for several seconds as a guy stalked her. I believe he then molested her underneath the subway, I believe it was, but luckily she was able to get away. This headline, by the way, if my head is obscuring it, says Algerian sex attacker. Remember people saying thank God for migrants after the one Algerian seemed to play a role in stopping that horrendous attack that happened in I forgot the name of it, on the train. So somebody put the name of it in the chat, please. I know you guys got the name of it. Hillingdon is the one that's coming to mind, but I don't know if that's the correct name of the town. Attacker shouted Inshallah, if Allah wills it, as he raped 25-year-old German student, then asked her if she enjoyed it.
German victim while raping her and while shouting Allah, afterwards inquired if she liked it. In 2016 in Australia, a Muslim cabbie groped and insulted his female passengers, including by saying, quote, all Australian women are sluts and deserve to be raped. Now, the bigger problem is that this issue is not limited to or a byproduct of the modern era. From the very start of Islam 14 centuries ago, Muslim men have always portrayed European women, even chaste nuns, as both sexually desirable and sexually promiscuous by nature. And as usual, it all traces back to Muhammad. As Ahmed M.H. Shboul, a Western academic of Muslim origin, euphemistically writes, quote, the Byzantines as a people were considered fine examples of physical beauty, and youthful slaves and slave girls of Byzantine origins were highly valued. The Arabs' appreciation of the Byzantine female has a long history indeed. For the Islamic period, the earliest literary evidence we have is a hadith saying of the Prophet, Muhammad is said to have addressed a newly converted Arab, would you like the girls of Banu al-Asfar? Appreciation's
a bit of a weird word, but I think I understand what he's getting at. Appreciation of Byzantine women, or appreciation of, these women who wouldn't be of Arab descent, it would seem a bit of an odd term, but obviously he was reading from, what was he reading from? Does it say the name of the source? I don't know the name of the source, but it was some Muslim academic that he was reading from.
Would you like the girls of Banu al-Asfar? Banu al-Asfar can be translated as the fair-haired and or skinned people. Now, despite this academic's fine take of the Arabs' appreciation of Byzantine women, who essentially represented the Europeans nearest to Arabia, Muhammad's question was meant to entice the man to join the Tabuk campaign against the Byzantine and reap its rewards. That is, the sexual enslavement of fair women. Indeed, right from the start, European women, again typified by neighboring Byzantine women, became the Muslim world's, quote, beautiful femme fatale who makes men lose their self-control, to quote another academic, Nadia Maria El-Sheikh, author of Byzantium Viewed by the Arabs. She continues, quote, our Arab sources show not Byzantine women, but writers' images of these women, who served as symbols of the eternal female, constantly a potential threat, particularly due to blatant exaggerations of their sexual promiscuity. In our Arabic texts, Byzantine women are strongly associated with sexual immorality.
Blatant exaggerations in this quote. So again, seemingly then exaggerating the perceived sexual promiscuity to justify doing things to them, it would seem. Again, another pattern with the wokest of the woke lefties in particular, calling you all these names, Nazi and fascist, etc., when it might not be true, to blatantly exaggerate, right, the perception of your political opinions to justify doing atrocities to you. Oh, another little parallel between the left and the Muslims, where you see, kind of starting to make a little bit more sense, it would seem.
While the one quality that our Muslim sources never deny is the beauty of Byzantine women, the image that they create in describing these women is...
Yeah, it was the Hadith. Thank you. Yeah, it was the Hadith.
...is anything but beautiful. Their depictions are occasionally excessive, virtually caricatures, overwhelmingly negative. Such fevered fantasies, which are clearly far from Byzantine reality, continues Al-Sheikh, existed only in the minds of Muslim men and, quote, must be recognized for what they are, attempts to denigrate and defame a rival culture. In fact, in Byzantium, women were expected to be retiring, shy, modest, and devoted to their families and religious observances.
But how dare we say attempt to denigrate and defame a rival culture That's insensitive. That's intolerant. That's possibly Islamophobic. Ah, you bigot. How dare you? How dare you?
Behavior of most women in Byzantium was a far cry from the depictions that appear in Arabic sources. Indeed, for example, Abu Uthman al-Jahiz, an Abbasid court scholar born around 776, insisted that the females of Constantinople were the, quote, most shameless women in the whole world. They find sex more enjoyable and are prone to adultery. Writing about 150 years later, Abd al-Jabbar, another prominent Muslim scholar born around 935, claimed that, quote, adultery is commonplace in the cities and markets of Byzantium. So much so that even the nuns from the convents went out to the fortresses to offer themselves to monks. And just like all white women today, not just Brits, are viewed in this unflattering manner, so too were all white women then, not just Byzantines, viewed as depraved hussies by nature. Thus, during the later crusading era, in a written excerpt that goes to great, if not pornographic, lengths, Muhammad bin Hamid, also known as Al-Isfahani, a celebrated Persian court scholar and poet, born around 1125, explained how he once saw a ship approaching which contained, quote, 300 lovely Frankish women, full of youth and beauty. The flattery ends there and the fantasizing begins. Quote, they glowed with ardor for carnal intercourse. They were all licentious harlots, proud and scornful, who took and gave, foul-fleshed and sinful, making love and selling themselves for gold, with nasal voices and fleshy thighs, blue-eyed and gray-eyed. They dedicated as a holy offering what they kept between their thighs. They maintained that they could make themselves acceptable to God by no better sacrifice than this. They made themselves targets for men's darts.
I forgot how stomach churning some of this video was when I watched it last time. I forgot how stomach churning it was. But no, in that time, you know, would you have had some instances of, say, you know, nuns and monks doing things that they weren't supposed to do? Yeah, probably, most likely. Would you have had it? Would it have been in the way that these people had it in their minds, where everybody was doing that, everyone was itching for this sexual promiscuity and all of this stuff? No, absolutely not. Would it have been looked on the same favorable way, or at least in the same ways that we look on things like pornography and OnlyFans nowadays and stuff like that? No, you know, you do stuff like that back then, the reaction would have been a lot different, you know? But yeah, projecting, I think Rachel said the projection of their own problems onto women. Yeah, absolutely.
After Saladin conquered Jerusalem from the Franks in 1187, this same Al-Isfahani, who was present and aged 62 then, launched into yet another sadomasochistic tirade extolling the sexual debasement of European women and children, about 8,000 of whom were enslaved. Quote, how many well-guarded women were profaned then? How many queens were ruled, and nubile girls married, and noble women given away, and miserly women forced to yield themselves, and women who had been kept hidden, meaning nuns, stripped of their modesty, and free women occupied, meaning penetrated, and precious ones used for hard work.
You should keep that in mind as well. Again, I see a lot of people like this, you know, again, they seem to be quite anti-Israel, anti-Jew, whatever it might be. That's not so much relevant to it, but because of that, they'll then say like, oh, Muslims worship Jesus, or at least Muslims do this, Muslims do that. They can keep stuff like this in mind, where they're talking about miserly women forced to yield themselves, and women who had been kept hidden, namely nuns, being stripped of their modesty. Yeah, they have such reverence for Christians. They have such reverence for Christianity. Would not appear so. I see a lot of that online.
And pretty things put to the test, and virgins dishonored, and proud women deflowered, and happy ones made to weep. How many noblemen, Muslim lords, took them as concubines? How many ardent men blazed for one of them, and celibates were satisfied by them, and thirsty men sated by them, and turbulent men able to give vent to their passion? How many lovely women were the exclusive property of one man? How many great ladies were sold at low prices, and lofty ones abased, and those accustomed to thrones dragged down? In short, just as many Muslim men see Western women as pieces of meat, wanton nymphomaniacs that are dying to be used and abused, so too did Islam's earliest luminaries always see and describe European women thus. It's a real ongoing problem, but if you dare notice it, especially where it's widespread in Western Europe in general, the UK in particular, you might just get yourself arrested.
Or killed. or killed, which is another thing that might happen, or have your life threatened, have your family threatened, yes, you could be arrested. Yes, you could have your character assassinated on social media. But then that could come hand in hand with a bunch of other things as well, particularly in the UK. And then it also comes hand in hand with these other weird things as well. Do you guys see a little while ago, there was a headline that recirculated. A woman, I think it was in Germany or in Netherlands, it might have been, is in one of the European countries. I believe she got gang raped by 4 men. I think it was in Germany. Because she said then that it was 4 white European men, when in reality it was 4 non-white migrants that done it. You know, because she didn't want to commit the cardinal sin of racism. So you end up getting things like this then as well, where there could not be, in Western countries, in Europe and the UK in particular, there could not be a greater license for these people to be doing what they are doing. They've got the blessing from the state. They covered it up and they persecuted people for trying to talk about it. They persecuted fathers for rescuing their daughters from rape dens. They've got the blessing of some of the people who they actually do these crimes to, because they'll say, no, it was actually our people that done it, even though they were never anywhere near it. If anything, they would have been the ones that would have protected you, but obviously then there'll be evil patriarchy, so you got all of that stuff, right? The evil white supremacy stuff. So you've got license from the people themselves, license from the state, license from the police, which is obviously controlled by the state, license from the school system, because they lecture people on Islamophobia, multiculturalism, diversity, and slamming the quote-unquote far right and all this stuff. What greater freedom could you want to do this? You could not really envision. You've got mosques everywhere. You've got imams saying the same thing, giving you blessings to do it, right? You've got entire communities that have been upended. So you've got the blessing of the communities. You know, some of these people that were bringing girls back to torture, they were calling up their friends and having their friends come over and do it. They were making brothels in these communities, right? Just that a home would become a brothel because they brought one of these girls back, and they would charge their friends or family, whatever it is, to use these girls. What greater license? What greater license could you have to commit these evil acts? Could not have an evil act. Was it? Or do another poll. Which flapjack should I get from my car with my snowball? Right, okay. Bear with. I will do this now. Uno momento. Right. Running the poll. And just quickly pull up the message so I can see it. Absolutely staggering. Is it right? Apologies, because I haven't formulated the question in the best way, but people will understand. Cherry. Blueberry. Oh, I misspelled blueberry because I'm an idiot. And then here we are. Okay. That poll is running for you, Rachel. Yes, we're keeping it jolly. We're keeping it jolly. We have a vote for blueberry. We have a vote. Oh, 2. Oh, no. Yeah, 1 vote for blueberry. 1 vote for blueberry so far. Yeah. Get your votes in. Get your votes in. Oh, you voted blue. Should I just cancel the poll now? Should I just cancel the poll now? I say, because I know I think I'm about 10 or 15 seconds delayed on my end. So, oh, we've got a second vote for blueberry. Is that Rachel voting again from another account? Is that Rachel voting again from another viewing account? Oh, I've had a missed call on WhatsApp. What have I had? That's very odd. What's going on? Okay. Right. We'll have to just briefly go and attend to this, ladies and gentlemen. Oops. That was a can falling on the floor. Everything started to go wrong. Bear with me 2 seconds. I will be right back. I just need to go and attend to this. Okay, and I'm back. Nope, don't worry. The can was not full. The can was not full, Ian. You're all good. The can was not full. There you go. Just a reminder, ladies and gentlemen. I will looking like Blueberry wins indeed. Looking like Blueberry wins indeed. So close that poll. This has been going for about 10 minutes. Just wanted to send a reminder, ladies and gentlemen. I know I covered it at the start of the show. Let me copy this link in to the chat. This did I copy the link did I copy the link earlier? Actually, did I send the link in? I can't remember. Oh, I sent the post. I sent the link to the post on YouTube. This is the link to a poll on X, if you have X, where there's a poll running for the next 14 hours of the best Welsh activist of 2025. Yours truly is in there. Big man Joe Marsh is in there. Doge Wales is in there. And the Voice of Wales is in there. So you should get your votes in if you want to get your votes in. Snowball plus blueberry flakjack shall be consumed with a big with a big fat smoke. Fair play. Fair play. But yeah, that was the only video I really wanted to go over with regards to the cultural stuff and stuff like that. I really just have a little bit of a chill now, to be fair. Unless anything you guys want to bring in to have a talk about or whatever. I'm just on X at the moment, see if there's any interesting news that have broken in the meantime whilst we've been doing this stream. Oh, this is quite interesting. So this was posted an hour ago on GB Politics on X. This is from the Center for Migration Control. I think they referenced an article from The Sun. I'll bring this up on screen. This was the actual headline itself. If I bring up the feature, here we go. There we go. So I don't know if you guys can see this. The actual headline itself, or the GB Politics thing, was exclusive data reveals that a migrant qualifies for universal credit every 43 seconds in the UK. And they actually then, I went to the Centre of Migration Control, they referenced this article. So I thought this would be good to read a bit quick. This is the, I'll just make sure this is correctly formatted so you can see it. Yeah, it should be fine. Yep, you can see it fine. So this is the article in question. a migrant becomes eligible for universal credit payments every 43 seconds. So let's have a little bit of read of this. A migrant becomes eligible for universal credit payments every 43 seconds, according to new figures. The number of foreign nationals entitled to claim benefits has nearly doubled in the past 2 years, hitting 734,200 in the year ending September 2025. This equates to over 14,000, or just over 2,000 a day, which I believe then comes out to the 41 every 43 seconds. That's nuts. That's fucking nuts. That's absolutely insane. Just when you thought things could like not get any friggin', you know, more insane, it gets more insane with regards to this stuff. Now, I had someone reach out to me a good while ago. I think I covered it well. I had two people, actually. I had two people reach out to me. And one of them was saying that in the time that they'd been working, they had seen a massive, you know, change in the recipients of certain things, should we say. You can go find my clip where I talked about it. I'll link that in the chat as well. Just bear with me 2 seconds. Because even in little towns in Wales, this stuff is making itself known. This was in one of my really early stuff. Oh, I thought let me try this. I thought that's what I saved it as. Oh, let me try this. Okay. Oh, where's it to? Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to find the clip a moment. Where is it? Okay, this is weird. Oh, for God's sake, I gotta go looking for it. Sorry, guys, I know I'm a bit quiet at the minute. Trying to find a video I made ages ago. I say it was ages ago. It was a good few months ago. Good few months ago, far before any of this. Talking about some things that people had reached out to me to discuss, wanted me to bring up on the show, which I really, really appreciate. It takes courage to do so. I'm just trying to find how far back it was. I'm going back through about over 400 videos at the moment. So apologies, this is not exactly obviously the most interesting viewing. I tell you what I'll do, in case you guys want to read the actual article whilst I look for this. I do apologize. In case you guys want to read the article whilst I look for this, the article has just been put in the chat now. Damn. Here we go. Found it. Found it. All the way back in number 45, so nearly like half of my entire episodes ago. Oh, for God's sake. Really? There we go. Yeah, I titled it, Some of My Followers Reached Out to Me. So if you want to learn about that, some of the things which people reached out to me with and how they've noticed things massively changing in their time and some of their times working in certain areas and stuff like that, then that would be a great clip. That would be a great clip to go and have a watch. Okay, I thought my phone vibrated, but we're not. Getting back to where we were. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Getting back to where we were. So like I said, critics slammed the explosive figures, said it is outrageous that British taxpayers are having to pay for soaring benefits of migrants. It absolutely is. Wonder why people are living paycheck to paycheck and having everything stolen from them, why they can barely make ends meet a lot of the time. Not to mention people are getting fired for their political opinions, and that's a whole other matter entirely, but people are barely able to hold it together. look at where your money's going. Well, look at where taxpayer money's going anyway, because government money is people's money that has been extracted from them forcibly. If they don't pay it, they go to prison. So you have a right to know where that's going, and have a right, if it's not something that you're happy with, you have a right to at least voice your concern about it and demand change, which we absolutely should be. Robert Bates, director at the Centre for Migration Control, said that it is absurd that the current rules mean that British taxpayers are forced to make welfare payments to migrants. It's time to end the right for migrants to claim welfare and ensure that British benefits only go to deserving British citizens. I think that's like the absolute bare minimum. The absolute bare minimum. So they're passing this test known as the habitual residence test, whatever the hell that means. Might have a look to see if we can find any information about this habitual residence test now, making them eligible for benefits like universal credit between October 24 and September 25. This is up from 411,700 between October 2022 and September 2023, an increase of 78% in 2 years, a massive increase. Between March 22 and September 25, nearly 2 million, so 1,953,400 people became eligible for the benefits, leading to, again, this stat where you have, again, a claim being passed or eligibility being granted every 43 seconds. So just think, let's have a little look. We've been streaming now. Well, I've been streaming for a little while before I went live. I'll go by what I have. I have, 1 hour and 33 minutes currently. So if it was to be one every minute, then that would mean that it would be 93 since the start of this stream. But obviously you have taken into account there's 15 seconds, 17 seconds less than that. So that's probably going to be up by at least a factor, because 15 seconds is 25% of 60. So at least a factor of another times that. So let's just do a little bit of napkin math. This is by no means PhD thesis math or anything like that. I'm saying math. I watch too many American YouTubers, don't I? Mathematics. This is not by any means, PhD calculation. This is just a bit of napkin maths. If we do 9, so if we're doing that, that means at about 113, right? In fact, it's actually more than that now. It's nearly 95. So if we do 95, nearly 119 people since the start of this stream. Since the start that I started streaming, which would be slightly less than the actual time that I've been live on YouTube and Rumble, but over 100 people since I've just been sat here speaking into this webcam. Well, looking at this webcam, speaking into this microphone. That's insane. That's insane. And obviously, it might be slightly different, but if we're taking the estimate, let's just say one every minute, and that would be, again, still nearly 100 people. In the next 5 minutes, that will go over 100 people. That is absolutely insane. Oh boy. And they wonder why people are angry. So I think this might be something which we can have a look at. Might be something that's quite interesting to have a look at. What is this? Human residency test or habitual residence test. What kind of stuff do they have to go through to get this, I wonder? Oh, for some reason now there we go. Let's have a look at what this is. It's habitual residence test. Oh, shit. Okay. Let's see what website we've got. Citizens Advice. Let's have a look on Citizens Advice. Or in this case, non-citizens advice. Is that too insensitive? Back with Flapjack and Snowball. Nice. Enjoy. I like a bit of blueberry, so enjoy. Close that tab. Easing the stress on my computer at the minute, just closing some tabs. So, on Citizens Advice, is what we're looking at now. We can have a look at some of the things which we can find to get benefits if you've recently moved to the UK. you have to pass something called habitual residence, which simply means that showing the UK island, the Isle of Man, or the Channel Islands is your main home. And that's pretty much all it is. So, does it actually say what the criteria for the habitual residence test is? Huh. Okay, it doesn't actually say on this website what the actual habitual residence test is. Oh, here we go. UK Parliament. Habitual residence test. Let's see what it says. Apologies if I sniffed a little bit there. I do apologize. I'm still getting over a little bit of the case of the sniffles, so I do apologize. You know, a little bit of a cold. Not quite man flu, but, you know, nearly there. Oh, crap. Right. Let's just get this prepped. And then, there we are. Put that back in the middle. There we are. So this is actually from the UK Parliament. I'm going to be bringing it up on screen in a moment. So this is actually habitual residence test. I'll zoom it in a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. Habitual residence test was introduced in 1994 after concerns about people coming from abroad to spend a holiday in the UK and claiming benefits whilst here. In 2004, a second element was added to the HRT. So it would have been David Lloyd George that was Prime Minister in 1994. Maggie Thatcher was before that. Let me just quickly have a look. Who was Prime Minister in 1994? Just so I can make sure that I'm accurate. UK Prime Minister 1994. Oh, it would have been John Major. John Major. So he would have been Conservative Prime Minister. Oh, Huntingdon. That was the place that I was on about before with the Algerian who was involved in the stabbing, in preventing it, right, or at least in helping people in that regard. So he was then Prime Minister in 1994. He was leader of the Conservative Party from 1990 to 1997. And then in 2004 would have been Blair? Yeah, Tony Blair. So that's the we're dealing with. John Major and then Tony Blair. Pardon me. A person who does not have the right to reside cannot be treated as habitually resident in the UK. However, not every right to reside is a qualifying right for benefit purposes. People claiming universal credit must show that they have the right to reside in the UK and are habitually resident here, which I believe just means that the UK or any of these islands, whatever island, etc., are their main homes. Is their main home. Claimants are asked 3 questions, which help us decide when to apply the habitual residence test. What's the nationality? Have you been outside the UK in the last 2 years? And how long have you been outside of the UK at that time? So they only go up to 4 weeks before they just classify as more than 4 weeks. So quite a short time frame that they're looking at. HRT applies if the claimant indicates that their nationality is other, or that they have been out of the UK for more than 4 weeks at a time. HRT applies to all nationalities. So if that's the case, wouldn't that mean that they'd have to apply the HRT if you went out on like a 6-month holiday or 6-week holiday to like somewhere or like whatever? But then again, if you can afford a 6-week holiday to say Australia or whatever, is universal credit something that you would really need in that regard? I suppose that's the question then you ask. What is the habitual residence test? Process where evidence is gathered through a set of questions. So it's designed to decide whether the claimant has the right to reside in Britain or is habitually resident. If it is found... So again, this is the weird thing. What is it? It just says a series of questions, and then unless it goes through a little bit later on, it immediately moves on to the economic area, the European economic area and stuff like that. I'm like, is it actually going to tell us what these questions are? If it is found that the claimant or partner does not have the right to reside, or that they are not habitually resident, the claimant or partner is treated as not in GB for the purposes of universal credit legislation. Only people who are treated as in GB can be paid universal credit. So if they are actually getting paid universal credit, or if there's an eligibility claim that goes through and is approved every 43 seconds, something tells me that this test really isn't like working. Maybe that's why they don't want us to know what the questions are, it would seem. If one member of a couple has the right to reside but the other does not, universal credit is paid at the single person rate. The circumstances of the ineligible partner will be taken into account. Human replacement therapy. Blueberries remind me of the Lake District. Lake District, really, really nice. I've never been, but I've seen, photos of it and some of the YouTube videos I used to watch of like people going training. They used to do a lot of trail running and stuff like that. They used to go up into the Lake District and do a lot of their training up there. It's a really, really nice place. Yeah, human replacement therapy. I think that's a pretty good example that you could basically describe the school system as that, to be honest. Or at least large parts of it. Common travel area. So Great Britain, Northern Ireland, Isle of Man, Channel Islands, Republic of Ireland are collected in the most common travel area. People from the common travel area are treated the same way as British citizens for the purpose of habitual residence test. Differences between legacy benefits and universal credit. So there are differences between legacy benefits and universal credit when deciding if someone is habitually resident. The main differences are European Economic Area. Nationals have the right to reside only as a job seeker. Universal claimants, credit claimants and their partners will both have to complete the HRT if applicable. EEA nationals need to show that they have the right to reside whilst remaining in the UK. So again, not really. It goes on then like claims of Afghan citizens, victims of forced marriage, transnational marriage abandonment. It's very, very weird. They classify that as a form of domestic abuse, which is like, oh, okay, yeah. Victims of individuals who have been abandoned overseas by their spouse who was a British national with indefinite leave. Their travel documents have often been destroyed or have expired. That's a horrible thing to have happen. It's a very similar thing to what they do in countries that still practice modern slavery. So like Dubai, for example, they'll get you into Dubai, then they'll take your passport off you and they won't let you have it back because then obviously you can't leave. So they keep you trapped there. So they'll take your documents, they'll take your passport, all of this stuff, and then they force you to work for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for basically, pennies. That's why Dubai has a lot of these, big infrastructure projects and stuff like that, and how they're able to, again, seem so profitable and give this massive allure of who they are, literally doing it while being one of the biggest purveyors in the modern day of modern slavery. It's absolutely mad. They literally have, you can go to Dubai, if you go to some hotels and whatever, you can go to a place like Dubai, which, again, tells you a lot. A lot of, Muslims, for example, say that the UAE is like the America of like the Middle East or whatever, as like a insult, right? And it's one of the places where even the like most liberal westernized areas, like Dubai, for example, just still extremely conservative by any sort of Western standards with regards to the Islamic culture and stuff like that. Even their most like conservative and scorned areas by fellow Muslims and stuff like that, people like Dil Hussein and those kinds of people, they will pour scorn on those quote unquote liberal areas, westernized areas, and they still practice modern slavery of like Indians and Pakistanis and so on. It's mad. It's mad. There was a YouTuber, what was his name? Ben, I think his name is. I linked 2 videos down there in the description of one of the videos as well. One guy who went out to work in the Hilton out there and was basically trapped there for a long while because he took his passport and stuff like that. But then another one, he literally walks down the street from one of his hotels where he stayed, this like dodgy little, side hotel, and literally comes upon a labor camp. It literally says signposted, big friggin' illuminated sign, labor camp. And it's like, oh, yeah. In areas of the world still do that. It's like mad. Madness. But yeah, first thing they do is take your passport. So yeah, you understand why they do that. But again, weird thing is, even UK Parliament document, they don't actually tell you. Don't know if you guys, know anything about this or whatever. They don't actually tell you what the actual questions that they ask are to qualify to pass the habitual residence test. Is it just they have questions that help you decide when to apply it, and those questions are: what's your nationality? How long have you been out of the UK in the last 2 years? How long, right, at a time? But that's just to help you understand or decide when to apply the test. They don't actually say what the questions are. Instantly, when the government doesn't want to say that kind of stuff, okay, I don't think the government has to have transparency over literally everything, right? You know, because there's a certain part of secrecy that has to be had for national security. Okay, that's why when you don't trust your government, when you've been given reason not to trust your government, it's so damaging. Because there should be things which they should be allowed to keep secrets on. You know, to not have it broadcast out to the world what their battle plans are, for example. You know, if we did end up in some kind of conflict or whatever, not broadcast your battle plans to the enemy, because then, oh shit, they can find out what exactly it is you're going to do. But why are they not telling us in this actual document what the actual test is? It's very odd to me. That's very, very odd to me. So I don't know what to make of that. I do not know what to make of that. It does appear that whatever's going on, right, how they're using this system, this test, if it's granting eligibility for universal credit, according to these new stats, for a person, migrant, every 43 seconds, I don't think it's working as intended, or maybe it is working as intended, and that's even more terrifying. Did you see as well that Keir Starmer hailed that he was happy that a person by the name of Alaa Abd El Fattah, whatever you say his name, to the UK, touting how good it was that he was reunited with his family or whatever. And he's been on the record before saying that, where is it? Not only was he a racist, but I shared one of his things as well. It was from 2007, mind you, but I don't think he's really changed in that time. I don't even know who the hell this guy is, right? I don't even know who the hell this guy is. But he posted this on what is now X, but would have been Twitter at the time, right? In 2007. In 2007, he posted... I moved myself over this way. He posted this. Says, fucking hate white people. They don't understand sharing or community. A blight on the earth they are. Good thing they stopped breeding. And you can actually see, if I just bring this up on screen, that Keir Starmer, in all his glory, got community noted on his posts where he expressed his sentiment that he was glad that this guy was back in the UK. Seems like he'd be a tremendous addition to our communities, eh? I'm delighted that Alaa Abd El Fattah is back in the UK and has been reunited with his loved ones. And community notes come in saying that this guy has a history of anti-Semitic comments. In November 2012, he wrote that there is a critical number of Israelis that we need to kill. In 2010, he tweeted, yes, I consider killing any colonialists, especially Zionists, heroic. We need to kill more of them. But not just the fact that he's anti-Semitic, he says himself, he's proudly racist, which our government is supposedly against, you know, all of these things, intolerance or whatever. He's said on his own post that he's proudly racist, at least in his history, and in particular, anti-white, which again would make him in that way anti the British people, which we should be taking with grave concern. That our Prime Minister is celebrating having him back in the UK. Does anybody know anything about this guy? Like why he's getting all this attention at the moment? This Alaa fat guy, whatever his name is, or El Fattah. Sorry guys, you just said that there's a static coming through. Let me see if I can fix this a bit quick. One thing I might do is, I can't pause the stream, but what I can do is just temporarily unplug this. Bear with me 2 seconds. If that comes back through, there we go. Levels are okay on my microphone. Apologies if anything was coming through on there then, guys. It does that from time to time. I don't know why it does it. I don't know whether it's my interface or the cable or something like that. So I have no idea what that was, but I do apologize. I do apologize about that if any static or whatever was coming through. But yeah, an Adelaide church. Adelaide Church is getting converted into a mosque, apparently, as part of a major Muslim group's nationwide expansion. So not long after the terror attack in Bondi, we now have a Adelaide church that is getting taken over and turned into a mosque. Again, equal parts of being taken over, but then wouldn't necessarily happen if people were using it, right? Apparently now, according to Migration Watch, half of all social housing in London has been occupied by foreigners. So this is the graph of that. Don't know whether you guys have seen this. So apparently, it's from Basil on X. I know is quite a... People have a hit or miss opinion of his account. His or her account, even. But he's just shared this from Migration Watch and from... another account called @Juice8882. Half of all social housing in London is occupied by foreigners, so that's what that graph looks like. I'll move myself out of the way slightly so that you guys can see that a little bit better. So you can see there that some areas you have 50% plus, some areas you have as low as 5 to 10, some as obviously you have as less than 5. But overall, total, you're looking at 47.6% social housing in London occupied by foreigners. Very, very sad. Very, very sad what's happened in London and in many cities. That's why young Brits can't have families. That is in large part. People forget that. Obviously, you guys will know that. People have their own families and such. One of the biggest things that people are going to struggle with now is getting houses, getting shelter, quite literally. One of, who was the guy that coined the hierarchy of needs? Is it Maslow? I think it's Abraham Maslow coined the hierarchy of needs. So first thing you need is like, just for basic survival, is like food, water, and shelter. Air, obviously. You know, you don't want to be drowning at the bottom of a river. And then anything above that, it's like relationship, anything like that. You know, anything that gets up towards self-actualization and all of these things that then would differentiate people as human beings and whatever, that comes much higher up. But you can't have those things without the foundation of food, water, and shelter. And in many cases, then it's going to directly impact British people's capacity to have families, and as a result, then will further contribute to the declining birth rate, and further then contribute to narratives where we need more migration, we need more replacement migration, all of this stuff. Because people are not having families. But again, you're giving social housing away to people who, you know, many instances, they're not British, but also then not contributing in other ways as well, obviously. So you're doing everything possible to destroy the native British birth rate, because that's been done by design. And as a result, then it's just going to compound the problems worse and worse and worse. The birth rate's going to decline. The foreign population is going to continue to increase, because they have massive families with multiple wives and multiple children per wife and stuff like that. And they're very attractive voting bloc to overthrow democracy, obviously. But then you eventually the British people just they just fade. They just fade away. But this is one of the biggest things that would be a contributing factor in that. You wonder why the culture then ends up changing. So this historic church in Adelaide, it's 177 years old, but it's now going to be redeveloped into a mosque as part of the Lebanese Muslim Association's nationwide expansion efforts. So it's a building built in 1848 on the corner of Franklin Street and Shannon Place, was sold to the Lebanese Muslim Association in September after being home to a belly dancing studio for the past 3 decades. That says it all as well. That says it all. So I think a lot of people now are realizing as well the importance of these kinds of things, and the importance of keeping these cultural institutions going. At least a certain number of the population needs to obviously be keeping these going. It's no surprise then when, again, these things end up getting taken over and stuff like that, are being used for other things that people will actually use them for. But it just goes to show we should not be bringing in people that would then need to take over these buildings and stuff like that, but we should be using them ourselves. Again, it's always in 2 parts. This is the thing where I get it, where it's one thing that like Bob from Speaker's Corner, he's gone down this weird route at the moment, I think. Oh, again, what I think is just untrue, saying that Englishness or whatever is inherently tied up with Christianity. Well, I'd be like, you can change your religion, but you can't change your blood. So you could become an apostate from Christianity. That doesn't mean you're less English, right? That doesn't mean you're less Welsh or less Irish, right? Because that's it. That's literally in your blood. And that's just the reality. So he's got this weird route. One thing he is right about, though, and when you talk about things like abortion and stuff like that, is that the abortion rates and stuff like that, in my opinion, are massively way too high. And that's one part of the reason why the native British population are dying young, because they're literally killing off the next generation in large part. That's one thing. But then he'll deny the replacement that's coming in from elsewhere, because it takes as long as they're all Christian or whatever, right? Which it's impossible to vet that kind of stuff to that extent, because we've seen how charities and even a lot of the church itself is sort of pro this replacement and pro all these massively diversity pushing agendas, which are destroying Britain, in my opinion, and stuff like that. They're one of the biggest purveyors of it. That you deny that part is a problem, then the immigration part is a problem. Only if it's say Islamic immigration, or only if it's Muslims and stuff like that. So yeah, sorry guys, I apologize about the scratching and everything, or the static that was coming through. I'm glad that it hasn't done it since I plugged it back in. So I don't know why it does it. I do apologize. Be okay if it was Turkish jelly. Be okay if it was Turkish jelly dancers. Absolutely. But again, you have then him going on about abortion, going on about decline of Christianity. Okay, all valid observations, but then not acknowledging the other part of what many people call the replacement, usually because of racial connotations and stuff like that. People don't want to go near that and whatever for various reasons. Okay, whatever. Loves more sort of with the civic nationalist position and stuff like that. And that's where you see people like Steve Laws, for example, saying that the civic nationalist position is going to rebrand itself as Christian nationalism in the UK, which we'll see how that goes. But then a lot of the ethno-nationalists, for example, will be quite quiet on the abortion front and will be going on about immigration, having a lot of valid points as well, obviously, as I frequently talk about. But then seeming to either downplay or not acknowledge the abortion stats and stuff like that. I think in large part because a lot of them make the observation that the immigration problem, okay, there's no, in terms of mortality, in terms of like life and stuff like that, right? Obviously, you're ending a human life, which is like the ultimate. But on a societal level, right, the amount of people that are coming in via immigration every year versus the amount of abortions that happen every year, immigration is going to be on a scale of multiple fold higher. From what I understand, at least. Even net immigration is on the scale of about multiple, or not orders of magnitude, but multiple fold higher. So last I checked, or the last numbers that we had, I think the abortion numbers were somewhere around 215,000 in the UK per year, somewhere around there, 214, 215,000. But you look at net immigration, that's several hundreds of thousands higher, which is obviously then going to be, at least in terms of how much it's going to affect demographics and stuff like that, it's going to affect it far quicker. And also then I think as well, if you resolve the immigration problem, you'll naturally find that a lot of the other problems with abortion and with families and with native peoples in the UK, they will naturally then sort themselves out as part of that sequence. Seems a lot of people don't want to address the immigration question because, again, you have to then wrestle with the ethnicity question, and that involves a lot of things that people seemingly don't want to tangle with, which you either tangle with the reality or you don't, right? Yeah, they pretend to be Christian to claim asylum and then go to mosque anyway. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for God's sake, Axel Rudakabana, we saw that, right? Welsh Christian choir boy, the media called him. I don't know whether he called himself Christian himself, I don't know. But obviously there's reports of him going to the mosque in prison. There's reports of him doing all these things. He had the Al-Qaeda training manual, ricin, right? Ricin, not specific to Islam, but again, a weapon to affect the entire frigging community, right? So, and these charities will go hand in hand because they seem to be globalist charities, globalist NGOs with a Christian name or with a Christian logo, right? That's what it seems to be. The fact of the matter is, even regarding that though, irrespective of that, the political reality obviously is that with regards to a question like immigration, sentiment against immigration turned very quickly, and people have wanted to control it at every turn, and they were told no. So what do? That's not even a religious question. That's not even a religious question. Oh. But yeah, just... Oh, here we go. The Telegraph has just published a full story on this guy by the looks. So he's an Egyptian guy. This Allah Abdel Fattah person. So he's apparently... Oh, this is great. Keir Starmer's apparently welcomed an alleged... I don't like the term Islamist. So an alleged extremist who labelled British people as dogs and monkeys, called for Zionists to be killed, and has now welcomed him into the UK. This is absolutely fantastic. He's been delighted that this guy arrived in the UK from Egypt after a travel ban imposed by Cairo was lifted. Great. You know that case where, like, Douglas Murray, for example, said that there was a leader of, I think it was Hezbollah, one of Hezbollah's leadership that was residing in Harrow, and now we've got this guy coming in, God knows where he's going to end up. We must keep a laughter though, brother. Yeah, absolutely. We must keep a laugh. You can either laugh or cry. You can either laugh or cry. It pays more to laugh, you know. Lovely. What else we got? Charlie's like the National Trust in Wales owns Beaumaris. Yep, you didn't start no civil war. We don't want you on any watch lists or anything like that. Let's have a look. We are. Anglesey. I think that's at the very least close to Run Up Yorworths, the Plaid Leaders constituency. So good luck with that. So it's got Balmoral Castle. The castle itself is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's quite interesting. That's the Balmoral Jail, the Victorian jail, the one that's spelled G-O-A-L. G-A-O-L. Looks pretty nice. Nowhere to go. To my defensive castle. When the Civil War starts, I think. Hypothetical, of course. Hypothetical Civil War. Look, let me see. Can I bring this image up? There we go. The castle has a moat and everything. We'll be safe, guys. We'll be safe. Let me bring this up. Balmoral Castle. Or Beaumaris Castle. It has a moat and everything. So we'll be fine. People don't have boats, right? People don't have boats. We still live in like the 11th century. People don't know how to navigate water, right? People still wear chainmail and knight's attire, and they'll sink, hopefully. Better to have a moat than not have a moat. Better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. That's my philosophy. But yeah, just think, all of this stuff would disappear. If things like this were to continue, if the political landscape like this was to continue, this stuff would disappear. We see a lot of people from these other areas of the world, when they conquer certain areas, like Christian areas and stuff like that, like Coptic areas in Egypt and stuff like that, they take pleasure in destroying the icons and statues and works, you know, artisanal works and all of these things, and the architecture. They'd happily destroy all this stuff. You know what I mean? Can't let that happen. Absolutely cannot let that happen. It will be when I finish it. Perfect. Sounds like a plan. Oh, great. This is something you guys might want to pay attention to. Don't know whether it's pardon me again, another case of like a hyperbole or whatever. Look, all right, I'll feed you now. Hey. You'll be all right for a minute. You're not going to starve. A little four-legged interloper pestering me for food at the moment, but You're not going to starve, Bill. You're perfectly fine. Even if you're a little bit hungry, right? You'll be perfectly fine. So this is an interesting headline from the Daily Mail that just got published earlier on today at 5 to 4. A new 9/11 is coming any day from the hundreds of Al-Qaeda sleeper agents ready to unleash carnage in the UK. Apparently, says an ex-MI6 spy. Yay. If this is true, this is fantastic. A former MI6 spy has claimed that a new 9/11 or 7/7 attack could come at any time due to the presence of hundreds of potential Al-Qaeda sleeper agents living in the UK. Eamon Dean, a former member of Al-Qaeda who spent years working for the Secret Intelligence Service, gathering vital intelligence for MI5 and MI6, says the biggest threat to the West is the spread of Islamic extremism and Iranian influence. I think people should keep this in mind, even if they want to critique the Zionist lobby, the Israel lobby, and stuff like that. Yeah, please do. Please do. Please highlight any kind of foreign influence, but please do keep this stuff in mind as well. Mr. Dean's risky work while a member of the terror group helped to foil significant Al-Qaeda terror plots, including one that would have targeted passengers on the subway in New York. Apparently, I think this might be the guy on here. I think this might be the guy in question. He says that, again, another 9/11 attack or 7/7 attack will happen. It's not about if it will happen, it's about when. Now he shares concerns that there could be hundreds of sleeper members of the organization in the UK and that the West is wrongly focusing on Russia as the number one enemy. Yeah, well, yeah, this is pretty much exactly what we've all been saying since the very start, when they seemed as though they were going to start sending hawking for war, right? They've said that we need to prepare for conflict on the scale that our grandparents and great-grandparents thought about. No, because we have bigger problems at home. This is exactly what we've said all the time. We have bigger problems at home, not just with the demographic crisis, but now we have potentially hundreds of sleeper cells. Getting Black Ops 1 vibes of the sleeper cells and stuff like that. And I know that was Cold War related. It wasn't specifically Al-Qaeda, right? It wasn't Al-Qaeda or anything like that. But again, I'm thinking like, this guy got the numbers, Mason, the numbers, Dean. You can tell us what the numbers are? Mr. Dean claims it is Iran that people should focus on, should be the focus of government policy in order to protect the British people. Well, even then, Britain to protect the British people. Obviously, I'm not a Secret Service, but a Special Intelligence Service agent or anything like that, right? Nothing, not claiming to be an expert on this stuff, but I'm like, every single problem at home needs to be solved first. That should be the prerogative no matter what. Every single problem at home needs to be solved first. So, you put checkpoints on Menai and Britannia Bridge. Sounds good. Yeah, but in that area you get like true Welsh accents and true Welsh speakers. It is speakers. Well done, George. I've been going for a little while now. Yeah, you get true Welsh speakers, which is really, really interesting. When I went up to Rhyl one time, which is obviously a little ways down, still a little ways across the top coast from Anglesey and stuff like that. Yeah, it's almost just like somewhere completely different. Whereas you go down to the south and you have the valleys, and you're like, all right, but stuff like that, or like from Gavin and Stacey. If you ever watched Gavin and Stacey, obviously Nessa, for example, Nessa, what's occurring? That's kind of stuff you get down in the bottom. That's kind of stuff you get down in the southern areas and stuff like that. Says the country was responsible for hosting Al-Qaeda for 25 years, opening up opportunities for so-called sleeper cells. That's the danger of a massively open border. So it could be anything. It could be drug smuggling, could be child trafficking, could be terrorists. And the world is not an amazing place in terms of it being, all of us going to get around and sing Kumbaya and shit. Yeah. It's the greatest lie that we've ever been told. Or one of. Threat like Iran needs to be countered because of the fact that they are a nation that has sponsored terrorism, Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah. He is predicting more lone wolf style attacks in the future and says that although it is impossible to estimate exactly how many potential Al-Qaeda members are in the UK, it is at least hundreds. And think, you end up just then with regular people who go into mosques and end up getting radicalized by hate preachers. Again, this is the thing. You get people that have been born in this country, right? What was his name? Salman Abedi, Manchester Arena bomber, born in the UK. Born in the UK. So it's not just the outside threats and sleeper cells that we need to be worried about. It's the homegrown stuff as well, which is obviously the premier concern. The ones that we not only brought in from outside, but born here as well. And that's just the reality, unfortunately. Unless something serious is done. What are we going to do? But yeah. No worries, Rachel. Sounds good. Who knows what 2026 is going to bring? You listed off a bunch of good places there. So what am I going to do? How long have we been going for? About 2 hours or so? I don't really think there's anything else that I wanted to go over now. Anyway. But yeah, so it's been about 2 hours. Yeah, tick, 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 boom, pretty much. It's depressing, man. Scary times. Scary times. What do our governments want to focus on? Racism, Islamophobia, and Russia. Racism, Islamophobia, and Russia. And, well, as you said, Ian, we have to laugh, or we're going to cry. So I'd say we best choose to laugh. Stiff upper lip. What do I see by 2028? I don't know. I can't even make the joke that I had 2020 vision because that time has long since passed. And obviously I don't have 2020 vision because of these things on my face. I think the biggest thing that's going to determine what goes on in the future is, first off, America. They're the global hegemon. There's no two ways about that. There's going to be things that people do behind the scenes to try and sabotage things. So, you know, all of the things that seem to be going on now, Marco Rubio and a bunch of the others that are in Donald Trump's cabinet at the moment, saying that some of the biggest agitators and biggest disruptors of peace deals have been the UK, have been Europe, have been NATO, have been the leaders, not the people necessarily, but the leaders, right? Zelensky's basically seeing, you know, I sympathize with the Ukrainian people and stuff like that, obviously. Zelensky basically seeing Europe and European leaders, especially Britain and places like that, as seemingly as, you know, endless money pits. You know, the biggest, you know, the taxpayers as endless money pits. I think obviously Donald Trump has put him back in, you know, a little bit of a box with regards to that, whether he likes it or not, whether the world likes it or not. I think that with Vance, if he gets into the presidency in 2028, which I think is a good possibility, I think he dislikes Zelensky even more. So I don't know how that's going to go. But ultimately, it depends mostly on them. I think it would be a hell of a decision, a hell of a curveball, I think, if they would, because I know some of them have mentioned it, some of them have floated this idea around of leaving NATO. So I think that would be an interesting point to put out there, right? If they were to leave NATO, because they dwarf everybody in terms of NATO spending and stuff like that. Maybe then, if a lot of the NATO nations would change the tune, maybe they're acting so much as these like smaller nations. They think because they're propped up by America, that America's always going to be there and they can just do what they want. Right? Thinking that like you have your group of friends and you have the big friend in the back who, no matter how much you agitate the person, who is bigger than all of you, right? It's bigger than Britain, bigger than France, bigger than Germany, bigger than Poland, bigger than all these other nations, right? Bigger than Italy, right? Or all of these other nations, that they all keep agitating this big fucker because they have the big fucker in the back. That's the US. And then the US is just going to decide, oh no, you guys fight this. I'm not getting involved. I didn't provoke this. And then all the other countries are like, what? Maybe then they'll change. Maybe then they'll change their tune. Who knows? Or maybe then we can not send millions of Europeans to die in a meat grinder needlessly. BlackRock's bottom line and for the minerals and for more houses that they can buy up in the UK and whatever, so that they can put in whoever they want and price Brits out of and price Europeans out of the housing markets in their own nations, right? I think it's going to be America that's going to put the biggest stop to that, but it's weird, obviously, because I think the main area where a lot of these, globalist transnational corporations like BlackRock, like State Street, like Vanguard, all of these big military contractors and stuff like that as well, are based in America. So I think it's going to take so much time for this. It's almost like a little pseudo civil war that America seems to be having a go with at the moment. This draining the swamp seems to be almost like this pseudo civil war within the government that they've got going on. They need to clear this up because so many of us are relying on them to sort it out, right? 2028. I think that, have we got an election in 2028 or is it 2029? Because otherwise, I don't know. We could see a Labour collapse in the next few years, potentially. Just throwing out some predictions now. Don't know how, don't know when, don't know why. It'll be a Politburo collapsing under the weight of its own bullshit, under the weight of its own bureaucracy. A Nigel Farage Prime Minister, maybe. Kind of, as much as I don't trust him, as much as I don't like what he done with Rupert Lowe, as much as I don't really trust or like any of them at the top of Reform, especially considering that Nigel Farage seems to be grooming Zaya Yousaf to take over, which I think a lot of us would have a lot of poise against, right? Really sad thing is, in the UK at the moment, if things were to drop, you've got a foreign male, which is David Lammy, in line for the next premiership. So say Keir Starmer was to resign or be deposed, you've got David Lammy, you've got Shabana Mahmood, or then it would seem that you've got Zaya Yousaf. All of them distinctly not British, and British people are crying out for a British leader, a British nationalist leader. Really, he's not even like a full-blown nationalist, but at least like a populist figure, a true like populist figure, you know what I mean? Like a Viktor Orban, something like that, right? Absolutely crying out for one. I want a snap election ASAP. Nigel will let us... I think about it. He has a track record, right? First off, Enoch Powell and a lot of the other leaders of the nationalist movements of around that time, I think it was Tyndale and a couple of others, were saying that they wouldn't give him his blessing, they wouldn't sign off on him, would say always be like suspicious of him. Catherine Blake Clark, who I believe was the founder of the Brexit Party, basically said that Nigel Farage came in and made it all about him and sabotaged it. He left UKIP. He left the UKIP leadership at the height of what should have been a crowning moment of victory, which was Brexit. And then he headed up Reform, had some really strong rhetoric on immigration, called that election in 2024 the immigration election, and then said that going on about Islam and all these other things as well, then saying now that we need to make peace with Islam and all of these things, that seemingly had a Muslim chairman bite his way to the leadership or to the chairmanship, right, and ousted Ben Habib, backstabbed Rupert Lowe in a massive way, and obviously then you have Lee Anderson and a bunch of others that were involved in that backstab as well. Yeah, absolutely, I completely agree. I don't trust it. I'm thinking that maybe Nigel Farage, the best case scenario, would be a stepping stone in a better direction, right? Maybe, but I don't know. It seems as though he wants to just be part of that SW1 club and doesn't actually so much care about Britain and people and stuff like that, certainly the British people, because there was that one clip where Nigel Farage, after one of the debates, see if I can find it, he crossed over the floor of the Commons, I believe it was, and was laughing and joking with Keir Starmer. Let me see if I can find the clip, because I know it was circulating around X a good few months ago. It's like, it just seems to want to be in line with the SW1 club, so to speak. Now, I don't know, I'm going to let this clip play in a moment. I don't know if what was said, obviously. Don't know what was said specifically, but this is the actual clip where, I'll put it on mute. Keir Starmer crosses the floor. Here he is, having a chat with Nigel Farage on the other side. He walks up to the bench. He walks up to him, mind you. They're shaking hands, seemingly. This would be seemingly you know, imagine, what can you say? Literally, like, this is literally what happened pretty much. Not to say that he's in any way the same character, whatever. Imagine, as we saw in World War II, with the powers of the 20th century, Winston Churchill shaking hands with Stalin. You know, it doesn't make any sense. Or Enoch Powell, for example, or should be, in theory, be our what's the word I'm looking for? I've lost whatever our equivalent of Enoch Powell in the modern day would be, you know, somebody who's the leader of the right wing, the mainstream right wing in Britain, shaking hands with one of the most, what you can only call this, evil, uncaring, communist, you know, ruthless Politburo leading figures in British history, it would seem. At least in recent history, as far as I'm aware. It's, I don't know. It could be all manner of things that were being said. It could obviously be all manner of things that were being said. I don't know 100%. Obviously, I wasn't there. And there's no volume. There was no hot mic or anything like that. But again, really, really doesn't sit well. Really, really doesn't sit well. Yeah. Yeah, it's like they're having a little gossip, you know what I mean? He leans in and is like whispering some into him, almost like they're having like a little, you know, mother's meeting natter, like, you know what I mean? So yeah, I don't trust him. He didn't sign Rupert Lowe's motion about digital ID, which I thought was really, he can't put his personal grievances aside. That's a big thing, right? In this case, from somebody who has a lot of the people, this is Rupert Lowe now, has a lot of the people in the palm of his hand, eating out of the palm of his hand, because he's not afraid to say the things that people think you're not supposed to say and that people want said. But people I've seen, they said, I'll go storm Parliament with pitchforks if Rupert told me to, right? Because he's unwavering on seemingly the double standard with regards to halal slaughter and kosher slaughter, for example. He's not one of these politicians that have gone and touched the wall and kissed this weird wall in Jerusalem, right? Which I understand is a thing that many politicians do. It does seem as though they're doing it as part of this, for lack of a better term, struggle session with the Israeli government or whatever. It does often seem that way, right? Quite interesting when, again, J.D. Vance went to Israel, as far as I know, did not go to the wall, went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and did not actually go to the wall, did not get a photo op with the bloody wall with the yarmulke on and the hand on the wall and stuff like this, right, whilst the Israeli officials and all the others are watching on. And in theory, I have no problem with people doing that. I don't see anything wrong with it, right? It's different than if in the back, what's going on in the back that you don't see and politicians don't want you to see is the strong arming of a foreign government or lobbying, whatever it will be, that's forcing your politicians to do that. Because that indicates that your politicians are in the pocket of foreign influences. And that's a different topic. That has nothing to do with the wall. That's just, you don't want your politicians owned by foreigners and doing things to pledge allegiance to those foreigners whilst then coming back and not doing what your people want. You know, Richard Tice, for example, going and touching the wall and whatever, wouldn't necessarily have a problem with, right? But then coming back and when he's quizzed on the demographics of Britain by Stephen Edgington, says that, oh, well, I'm not going to be around to see it, so what do I care? Be like, well, we are. My kids are. The young relatives of other people in my family are. So he's showing that he doesn't give a fuck about them, and he seemingly gives a fuck about himself and his image. Which, again, was the biggest thing in tarnishing his own image, that sentiment was. Tice being, again, the whole Ben Habib saga, the Rupert Lowe saga, how many of them were involved, right? Lee Anderson again. So, yeah, would not trust reform. The best thing that I can hope for at the moment, there's certainly, at least with reform, Wales in particular, I think that they are the best of a bad bunch. Best of a bad bunch. Yeah, that makes sense. Raj will get it. Best of a bad bunch. That's where I see it. The only good thing with his talk, if he does not deliver war, I hope not. I wouldn't go and, at this point, Even if, right, so this is the biggest thing. You're saying there, like, again, I vote for pitchforks, let's go. Yeah, absolutely. I would be straight there with you. Now, if Rupert was to say you need to go die in Ukraine right now, I'd be like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? So that's the thing. Any politician that's not championing, any British politician that's not putting Britain first, right, in terms of their initiatives, you'll be able to see who are putting Britain first and the British people first by often the way that they talk and the things that they talk and the issues that they address and stuff like that, how they speak about things, being unwavering in talking about things that people have deemed that they're unsayable and all these other things, right? You can tell that then there's others that are doing it just for clout or just to be part of the SW1 club, like, you know, all of the people that want to curry favor with like the big tech overlords and whatever it is, right? And just be invited to the caviar and wine parties in Westminster, right? They don't actually care about that. That's why Rupert Lowe stands out so much for some people, because he speaks like a regular person. He makes un-PC jokes for like a regular person does, right? Do you see that thing where he talked on a camera? He was doing an interview with somebody, and he spotted a small camera in the corner of the room, and he pointed it out because he spotted it. He said, "Oh yeah, a couple of years ago, or like 10 years ago, or whatever, we would have called that a Jewish camera." You know, that little joke, right? That little wink and a nod joke, right? The thing you're not supposed to talk about. He makes humor like that, right? He's very relatable, very down to earth, not afraid to say it as it is. And he's a guy you could tell that you could go and have a pint with and you could have just a great time, unfiltered, completely unfiltered, great time, right? Even as a young, you know, there's however many generations, like 1 or 2 generations between Rupert and myself. And I find him more relatable than some of the younger ones in Parliament. You know what I mean? That says a lot. And the meme potential. I don't know if any of you follow Rupert Lowe on X. He's a meme machine. I don't know whether it's somebody managing his social media. It might be. It probably is some young Zoomer kid that's managing his social media. But the memes, right, and the clapbacks. The guy claps back as if he's like 20, 30 years younger. You know what I mean? He's absolutely insane. He's absolutely insane. I think he's the best. You know, I think if you were to call a snap election tomorrow and do it based on candidate, not party, I think Rupert Lowe would sweep it. Or at least get a massive minority. I think he would potentially dwarf entire parties, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe you have people that vote on just party loyalty and stuff like that, and they don't care who the actual person is and whatever. But I think if you were to call a snap election just based on candidate and have Rupert run, I think you'd probably get... how much time do we have? I don't know. I'm not a... Oh, how much time do we have as in this stream, you mean? Is that what you mean? How much time do we have? I was thinking of rounding it out somewhere around now on this stream. This has been great, guys. Thank you ever so much. It's been a nice Christmas chill stream with a couple of stories that we went over. In terms of like how much time do we have before like some big war erupting? Oh God, I don't know. I couldn't say. Societal collapse. One thing I would say, the one measurement you can go with is, I likened this as well to the point regarding demographics and in the UK, because with the changing demographics will come changes in culture, right? The minute the British become a minority and lose any kind of voice, that will be like crossing the event horizon to a black hole. The minute that happens, there's no going back. At least the way that I see it currently, there'll be no going back, you know, outside of, you know, means and alternatives that I don't want to get into, right? You know, use the 20th century potentially as a kind of blueprint, if you will, on both sides, not just on one side, on both, right? You know, gulags and all this kind of stuff, you know, just things you got to do to survive. It's just the minute the British become a minority, they can't control anything democratically anymore. So what recourse does that have? Now, based on some estimates, is that like 2040? So I don't know if there's anything wrong with the chat. I do apologize. There's 2 6 months have come in there. Your 2 6 months have come in there. If you were to flesh that out a little bit, why do you think it's 6 months? But I think some estimates put it around 2040 or 2060. In terms of like the real completion and the real acceleration of the plan, it'd be somewhere around there, if not before, right? In terms of them getting us into some kind of conflict or whatever, it would be impossible to say, because there's no way that the treasonous leaders are going to give this stuff up without a holding on to it with everything that they can, right? You know, like the devil, as he's losing souls, right? His souls are being reclaimed and stuff like this, right? He'll try every little thing he can, every little trick to try and hold on to as many as possible to drag them down to damnation with him. That will be the people who are the most ardent followers of this weird religion that's taken over the Western world in the government that we have. Okay, this weird woke destroying the West religion, whatever the hell it is. They're not going to give that up without a fight. With how entrenched that they are. They're not going to give that up without a fight. And they'll happily, as you saw Macron do in France, they will happily throw their people and the leaders who would change it for their people to the dogs and unite with communists and all manner of evil people from outside and inside, domestic and foreign threats, like Macron did with uniting with the outright communists in France to keep Le Pen out. They will do everything they can to ensure that this plan succeeds. And a lot of people need to face that reality, I think. I think if more people realize that and start mentally preparing themselves for it and understanding what needs to be done, you could then see quite a substantial increase in the time that we would have. The reason why it seems as though it's just happened so quick and it's so perilous is because people still don't understand. People still don't see it and people still don't understand it. Is Islamists showing teeth and carrying weapons openly? Police know mosques. Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose we just read that article. Saying a new 9/11 is coming. If that happens in the next couple of months, let's say we get on some kind of holiday next year, let's say these people choose to attack Easter or what else we got? They choose to try and do an attack on New Year's, maybe. That might be another one. St. David's Day would be another one. When is, let me see when something is. Because usually they try and do this stuff on, let me find out this. It could be again St. George's Day, 23rd of April next year. So you could have St. George's Day would be one that they might target, depending on where they are. You would have St. Patrick's Day in Ireland. You have St. Andrew's Day in Scotland. You have St. David's Day, 1st of March in Wales, obviously. Any big sporting events or concerts or anything like that could all be targets for the new hundreds of sleeper agents that we've been told are in the UK. So yeah, it could absolutely be a matter of months. And I think if, something like that was to happen, I don't want it to happen, obviously, for obvious reasons. But maybe then with the conversation surrounding the political discourse, maybe with so many examples of every little thing that have been forced in front of people's eyeballs, right? Then maybe it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back on a massive scale, on like a nation scale. And I don't know what will happen from that point onwards. I don't want to... Yeah, any Friday night during Ramadan or Eid, yep, absolutely. Maybe on that one they might be eating themselves into food comas, so maybe we might be safe on those ones. Maybe they won't want to destroy their lights, which they put up in London, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, absolutely, it could be any of them. Jewish holidays. Obviously had Yom Kippur. Any Saturday. Any Sunday. For Jews and Christians respectively. Literally anything. It boggles the mind to even think about. I don't know if I'd be able to put a time on it. It would be a guess at best. But certainly 2026 is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see whether the Labour government survives 2026. And if the Labour government, say, does fall, or if Keir Starmer does get forced to resign or gets deposed, essentially, or anything like that, who's to say what's going to happen then? I don't know what would happen if we were to get, say, David Lammy as PM or Shabana Mahmood as PM, let's say. It'd be... I think the one thing I'd like to know, it's impossible for me to know at this present time, but the one thing I'd like to know is... Oh, there we are then. If traditionally Muhammad fought great battles during those times, yeah, fair enough. Maybe then. Yeah, absolutely. There's another thing we got to worry about. Fucking hell, Pakistan Independence Day is another one where you see these ethnic conflicts flaring up. Hell, it could be something that's in retaliation if this war isn't over between Israel and Gaza, or if the Israelis, for example, light up an offense again on Gaza for whatever pretense. You've seen how in the aftermath of October the 7th and in the aftermath of the war in Gaza that there were mass protests on the streets of Britain. Obviously, we all saw them. Who's to say it couldn't happen just after one of those? If a completely unrelated conflict to Britain. Britain hasn't had anything to do with that region since, 48 or 45, whenever they lost the mandate. I can't remember the exact time. You know, they declared independence. They declared themselves a state in 1948, so we'll just go from there. We haven't had anything to do with that region for, it'll be coming up 80 years. And, you know, you get so much people in Britain now that it could unite at any time. Could literally be tomorrow. Could literally be tomorrow. And as you know, Lobby by Design, this was a clip that came up on my bookmarks the other day of Tony Blair. Tony Blair going about global citizens and stuff like that. I just want to see if I can find it a minute. Where is it? And as I mentioned before, it'll only be... I can't find it. It'll only be us that will save ourselves. Tony Blair, global citizen. Because this is the end goal, to destroy British people, destroy British sovereignty. This was the clip that came up on my X feed. I just want to play this a bit quick.
I think in a way, for a country like Britain, whose future has got to be as a nation of global citizens, not just British citizens, then I think, interfaith in this context
Disgusting.
is incredibly important, because you cannot be a global citizen and be religiously illiterate.
So there's this whole notion of global citizens and all of this stuff that is extremely dangerous. And it's going to keep continuing in this way until a political representatives change. Think about it, because all of these decisions rest on them. We don't really have any input in these decisions, but we're affected by them nonetheless. Yeah, Tony Blair's an absolute ghoul. I agree with her. Wonderful battles, magnificent, taken many. Yeah. Have a look at Al Zut. I think that'll be a quite humorous Muhammad story for you. Yeah, you're a very good orator. Where the heck are the numbers? Thank you ever so much. I will continue to do my best. Because it's, if it's my generation or the generation coming after, it has to stop somewhere, right? It has to stop somewhere. But really appreciate the feedback. Thank you. Really, really appreciate that. But yeah, I can't consider. It reminds me of the Manic Street Preacher song. If you tolerate this, then your children will be next. Somebody sent me that one time. I hadn't heard the song before, but somebody sent me that song. It says, if you tolerate this, your ancestor will be next. Sorry, not your ancestors, your children will be next. It's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. Al-Zut is disgusting. Mohammed likes BBC, yeah. Oh, it's a funny little story. That's a funny little story. Now, there's going to be a fatwa issued because I brought that up. But yeah, thank you, Ian. I really appreciate that. So I'm hoping that with oration, with bringing these stories to light, just talking about these things on platforms and stuff like that, it's one of the biggest ways that young people especially get their mediums nowadays. And to have a podcast scene that they have in the US at the moment with like Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Wilson's another popular one, Steven Crowder, regardless if you agree or disagree with their views, that's not necessarily the point, but trying to get big viewership on independent alternative media is not something that we have so much in the UK. It's massively untapped. You have some relatively big figures, Connor Tomlinson, the Lotus Eaters guys, the Voice of Wales, I think, doing a little bit here and there. Relatively popular people, like Paul Golding, I know has nearly 250,000 followers on X, for example. A lot of these people have lots of followers and lots of influence in that way, but they don't have like true like either brands or outlets for that in terms of creating content in this way, especially in like a regular way that hopefully then will people will have resonance with, if you will. Like David Wood, I think he's okay. Obviously I learned those things about his history recently, which obviously he's admitted to and stuff like that. I think he's pretty good in terms of his content on Islam, and he's done a lot of debates on Islam and stuff like that. He was the first one. It was where I saw Al-Zut, yeah. It was the first time I saw Al-Zut. Him and Apostate Prophet. I haven't watched them in a little while, but them two, Inspiring Philosophy as well, Mike Jones, think they're pretty good in terms of the apologetic side. I always learn things from their videos. That's the biggest thing. One video from David Wood, on a slightly separate note, I think was really cool and really good, was his video that he done where it was the backstory to his life, and he explains some of the things that he'd done, where he'd attacked his father and all stuff like that, spending time in young offenders, where he first met a Christian person and stuff like that, right? And he done it in this completely unedited video in public, going from New York sidewalk, as they say in America, pavement, going down into the subway, paying for his ticket, going through all of this stuff, just narrating on the train, walking through past people, being followed with a camera, just completely uncut for like 30 minutes, walking and talking about his history and eventually his conversion to Christianity and stuff like that. I thought that was a really tremendous video. Fair play. I thought that was a really tremendous video. As well, just to have the balls and the wherewithal and stuff like that to go out and do that in an area like New York. I think it was in New York was where he was at the time, but not just the content itself. Yeah, elevators in a New York subway. Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't get set on fire. You know what I mean? By some lunatic or whatever. If Daniel Penny was there, maybe not. But yeah, I think in terms of the apologetic stuff, really, really good guy. And I really appreciate him again. He's been one of these people that's been from again, where in America you have free speech, you have the First Amendment, protected speech, stuff like that. You can actually talk about these things and not have the fear, at least for the most part, when Biden was in, it was a little bit different, of the government coming after you to persecute you for speech and stuff like that. Have a lot less of that out in America, outside of very big, publicized incidents of protest and stuff like that. You don't hear the same kind of figures of arrest rates for social media posts out in America versus over here, so they don't have the same problem. That's why I appreciate a lot of people who share those things and share the plight of the people going on in the UK as well. But yeah, the apologetic stuff from David Wood I think is pretty good. I always learn a few things, and I often use him as well as a reference tool. If there's a claim which I make about Islam or something like that, or I reference his video, and I leave him down in the description. I reference his videos quite often as well. So yeah, I think he's pretty good. I think David Wood is pretty good. And he was the first one to make me aware of the Al-Zut incident, which is, it's absolutely horrific. It's absolutely horrific if you've read what is alleged to have happened at that time at Al-Zut. But yeah, it was David Wood. I can't remember where I was going. But yeah, the podcast scene in the US, I think it's only going to be with people taking this risk. So obviously people taking the risk and speaking It could come with severe penalty in the UK of being arrested or worse, whatever, right? Character assassination, all these things. It comes with massive risk, but it's par for the course at this point, right? And to build this kind of scene that they have in the US, you have to be willing to put your head out there. You have to be willing to stick with it for a long time. You have to be willing to keep talking about these things, despite the risks, despite the people ain't going to like it. You just need to keep doing with it and rolling with the punches, because if you want things to change, then if you sit back and do nothing, or if you stay silent out of fear, whatever it is, then things are not going to change. And ultimately, the government wants us silent because then we'll likely be compliant and we'll forget about what's going on, and they'll be pushing their agendas through with complete impunity. Impunity is the word I'm looking for. And they will have no objection whatsoever. But hey, people have died in this country. Young girls and men, women alike have died because of these things. Various political issues, one thing or another, that the UK have arrested people for talking about, and all these things. You don't take flack unless you're over the target. So it's just something that needs to keep happening. And we can be jolly. We can be jolly in the struggle. That's the way that I see it. Oh, yeah, this hat is way too tight. But I'm not taking it off. I'm not taking it off until we finish up this stream. So I think that'll do it for me tonight, guys. I hope that we enjoyed it. I hope that we had a very, very good Christmas and a very, very happy New Year. I'll stay on just for another minute or so, just because I know that there's a bit of a delay from when the chat comes through and when you guys see me talking now. So I think it's about 10 or 15 seconds delay, depending on where you're watching this. And my dog has now decided to nick a pair of socks, so I'll have to go deal with that in a moment. But yeah, if there's anything that you guys would like to bring up a bit quick or whatever, or any feedback you'd like to leave me with as well, there we go. You haven't heard the cracking sound since I plugged back in. Rejoice and be jolly. Yes. I think you can do as well if you want, guys, because one thing I'm doing at the moment, and I appreciate that my voice is not the easiest to listen to, but you guys have been here for nearly 3 hours now, so maybe it is. If you haven't already gone and listened to it, I've started up a series which I've done before on an old platform which I had. It's called Wrong Speak, and it's a dissection of 1984. We'll go chapter by chapter through it, reading the actual chapter itself and then talking about it. So if you tune in and just listen to the audiobook parts, you'll have the audiobooks. You have the audiobook element and you get the story, but then you'll also get the discussion from me as well after that as well. So we're going to go chapter by chapter, and there's about 30 or 40 chapters, I think it is. So we've got a lot to go through. Good night, Ian. Thank you very much. And I'll definitely take you up on that offer of the nice malt waiting for me when I visit the other old country. I have to get something arranged. But yeah, thank you very much. And I hope you had a tremendous Christmas, Ian. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in, obviously. And I hope you had a tremendous Christmas as well. And hopefully you're going to have a great New Year as well. But yeah, thank you ever so much. And thank you, Rachel, for that lovely comment on my voice. Again, not what I was told growing up. So I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. But yeah, so that's a series doing on 1984 at the moment, which I think could be very, very interesting. Again, 1984 is essentially, as well as Animal Farm, the blueprints that our governments are using, essentially. Orwell tried to warn us about them nearly 100 years ago. We have not listened, or well, seemingly at least our political leaders have not listened. They have not taken the lessons that he pushed forward. Many instances taken them as instructions rather than cautionary tale. So that will be something which you can tune in and listen to if you want. They'll be coming out weekly, provided I'm able to keep to the schedule, which is no reason why I shouldn't be able to, but they'll be coming out weekly. And if you want to get the audiobook or the actual story without the need to sit down for extended periods of time to listen to it or to read it, then you'll be able to get that. If you are in the car or do a lot of commuting, and be a nice commute companion as well. But thank you ever so much. Thank you ever so much, guys. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to give it 10 seconds, and well, I'll give it 10 seconds or so, and then I'll leave it, because then the stream will be 2 hours and 50 minutes. But I'll leave it a little bit longer, just in case. But yeah, this has been a nice chill stream, ladies and gentlemen. Well, not so chilled, given some of the things that we've talked about. You know what I mean? Given some of the things that we talked about, it's not so chilled. But wishing you guys all the best. Obviously, hoping that you had a very Merry Christmas. I'm hoping you have a very, very happy New Year, obviously. Nice, deep-voiced, hairy guy with a brain. What more could I ask for? I appreciate that. Well, if I've got a face for radio, maybe I've got a voice for it as well. What can I say? Yeah, thank you ever so much. Thank you ever so much for that as well. I greatly appreciate it. So yeah, thank you very much, guys. Greatly appreciate your time this evening. I'm wishing you all the best. Have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for watching. Hwyl fawr. See you next time. You take care now. And Rachel, we will certainly in the future, I'll see if I can get a band of us together with some pitchforks, and we'll take over Beaumaris. Obviously, any, MI6 or MI5 watching, hyperbolic talk, right? Don't arrest me until I've done it, okay? You know what I mean? Innocent until proven guilty, all of that stuff, right? So yeah, we'll take over Beaumaris. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Rachel. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you for watching. Hwyl fawr. See you next time, and you take care now, ladies and gentlemen. Godspeed.